My sister and I are twins, but we look nothing alike. I'm the pretty one, while she's, well, not. To spare her from feeling insecure, I took her under my wing, helping her lose weight, get cosmetic procedures, and master makeup. I turned her into a stunning beauty. But then, 3 years later, the beauty tax hit. Suddenly, every beautiful woman was scrambling to make herself uglier to avoid the levy. My sister had spent every last penny on becoming beautiful and had nothing left to reverse it. She blamed me entirely for her ruin. In a fit of rage, she picked up a kitchen knife and killed me. To my shock, I woke up reborn at 16, back before my sister's transformation. I opened my eyes, lying on a soft, blush-pink bed, rubbing my aching arms. A flood of terrifying memories washed over me. The searing pain of my sister Selena swinging that kitchen knife at my face is still fresh in my memory. It's all your fault, Evelina. If you hadn't made me so beautiful, I wouldn't have to pay this exorbitant beauty tax. You did this on purpose to ruin me. You just can't stand to see me doing better than you. You knew about this tax all along, didn't you? I'll kill you. Her face twisted with rage as she barged into my home and slashed my face open, leaving a gaping wound. I wasn't killed by the blade itself. I died from the sheer agony. In my past life, my heart ached seeing my sister ostracized for her looks. I helped her lose weight and get cosmetic procedures until she became a stunning, pure-looking beauty. Little did I know, the beauty tax would suddenly be imposed. The so-called beauty tax is a system where society assigns women a composite score based on their looks and figure. A corresponding percentage of tax is then deducted from every purchase they make. According to that score, a perfect 10 gets taxed 50%, an 8 gets taxed 40%, and so on down the line. In other words, the great beauties who were once adored for their looks now have to spend a fortune just to maintain them. For a $100 item, an unattractive person pays the sticker price, while a beauty has to fork over $150. This has sparked outrage among a great many women rated as 8s, 9s, and 10s. However, some wealthy beauties saw it as an affirmation of their looks and were willing to pay this so-called beauty tax. But my sister and I were different, coming from ordinary families. We simply couldn't afford to keep up with such exorbitant costs. I chose to work even harder at part-time jobs and pinch every penny, while my sister turned to theft. After being caught stealing for the 3rd time, she was sent to prison. Unbelievably, the first thing she did after getting out of prison was to come to my door and hack me to death. To my astonishment, by some divine justice, I was brought back to life. Just you wait, Selena, this time I'm going to make sure you get a taste of a gruesome death. Just as I was reliving the despair of being hacked to death, my little sister Selena came pattering over. She was only 16 at the time, just starting high school. High school girls typically start caring about their appearance, but Selena was completely oblivious, looking at her dark, acne-covered face, her body grown plump from years of junk food, and, most infuriatingly, her greasy, unwashed hair with its flaky dandruff. I felt a surge of irritation. Selena and I grew up as sisters from the same mother, but every holiday, the relatives would give us these odd looks, taken aback by the stark contrast in our appearances. Evelina is so beautiful, her skin is so fair and delicate. Selena is, quite well behaved too, and she has a good appetite. When I was little, hearing these comments always filled me with pride, but as time went on, every time the adults said such things, it made my heart ache. We're twins. So how can the difference be so vast? I've wrestled with that question too, but the answer is actually quite simple. After all, we share the same parents. How different could our genes really be? My sister and I look very much alike. Aside from her slightly broader nose and mildly drooping eyelids, there's hardly any difference in our features. The real difference lies in our vastly different lifestyles. I have very regular meals and basically eat whatever mom makes. But my younger sister is different. She's loved KFC since she was little. If she doesn't get it at least twice a week, she'll definitely throw a tantrum and cry. I like KFC too, but I wouldn't cry like that. It's precisely because my sister throws these fits that mom has always spoiled her. At the slightest frustration, she would throw a tantrum. Every time she threw a tantrum, snacks and bubble tea would magically appear before her. Our family wasn't well off. In fact, we were quite tight on money, which meant mom could only afford to buy a single serving of fried chicken each time. Evelina doesn't like this stuff anyway, so it's perfect. More for her little sister. Mom said this, but the truth is, I love it too. What kid doesn't love KFC? But my little sister loves it, so I'm happy to save it for her. It's the same with KFC, bubble tea, juice, pizza, crayfish, and all that. Pretty much everything I took a couple of bites of ended up in my little sister's stomach. Eating so much junk food during a child's developmental years is bad for both their health and their growth. By the time the adults realized she'd been eating far too much junk food, it was already a bit too late. Even though she's only in her teens and 165 centimeters tall, my sister already weighs 80 kilograms, looking like a perfectly round little ball. On top of that, she broke out in terrible acne, since no one else in her family had ever had skin problems. We figured it was definitely from her diet of greasy food and her habit of staying up all night and sleeping all day. I'd warned her countless times that eating like that was bad for her health, but she just wouldn't listen. That all changed in her first year of high school. Right after starting school, she confessed her feelings to the boy she liked, and he rejected her with a look of utter disgust. From that day on, she was determined to lose weight and become beautiful. She started pestering me every single day for tips on how to look better. I was thrilled at first that my sister was finally ready to change. I went all out for her, trying every reasonably scientific weight loss method under the sun, like 16, 8 intermittent fasting, various cleanses. I even personally planned her meals, endured plain boiled chicken breast with her every day, and ran 5 kilometers alongside her. But none of it could compete with her own stubborn, self-sabotaging approach. She refused the balanced meals, accusing me of trying to fatten her up, claiming it was useless. She complained the exercise was too exhausting, saying some influencer promised you could lose weight without dieting or working out. She bought a whole bunch of diet pills, ended up with diarrhea and vomiting, and was on the verge of a binge-eating episode. If I hadn't pulled her back in time and forced her to eat regularly, she never would have lost the weight. Sis, what do you think about me confessing to Jensen tomorrow? He'll say yes, right? My little sister's voice was incredibly sweet, a stark contrast to her overall demeanor. In my past life, she asked me the same thing, but I advised her not to be impulsive, to at least get to know him a bit before confessing. But she didn't listen at all, stubborn as ever. She just shoved the love letter into Jensen's arms, shouted I like you, and then ran off all flustered. Who would have thought that the very next day, news of the ugly girl confessing to the school heartthrob would be all over the campus bulletin board? Her self-respect was utterly trampled into the dirt, and she probably started hating me right then and there. She resented her own plainness and my beauty, and she resented me for supposedly looking down on her for it, too. Even though that wasn't my intention, that's how she took it. So this time, I said, go for it, girl, there's no shame in chasing love. Just like what happened in the previous life, Jensen posted about her on the campus forum. Everyone pointed and whispered, calling her a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. That evening, Selena came running home in tears. Oh, Selena, dear, what's the matter? Mom pulled the crying Selena into a hug and then scolded me. Evelina, what's wrong with you? Your little sister is being bullied at school and you didn't even think to help her. I'm at a loss for words. My parents are so obviously biased, yet they're completely oblivious to it. They think I'm pretty and well-liked, while my sister Selena gets picked on, and they feel guilty about that, but she's the one who ate her way to that weight. How does that justify them treating me unfairly? I explained, Mom, I don't even know what's going on with Selena. Why don't we let her tell us herself? And I'll help her sort it out. Hearing this, Selena grew even more furious. She yelled, Evelina, you did that on purpose. You knew I'd get rejected, and you still told me to confess. You just wanted to watch me make a fool of myself. Mom was also taken aback by the words, and for a moment, she was at a loss for what to say. I feigned surprise and asked, what, you got rejected already? Selena looked like she wanted to lunge at me, sobbing uncontrollably, gasping for breath between cries. No way, Jensen must be blind. My sister is so beautiful and lovely. He just has terrible taste. Hearing me, Mom quickly chimed in to comfort her. That's right. Our Selena is the prettiest. Selena was taken aback for a moment, then asked hesitantly, really? But everyone says I'm ugly. I immediately waved my hands. Yes, they just have no taste. That's all. We're just a little full-figured. But don't listen to them. They're just jealous of you. My little sister nodded, half convinced, before her smile quickly returned. Then for dinner tonight, I want loasafen with 2 extra fried eggs. For my drink, I want a supersized bubble tea, and for dessert, I want pistachio blueberry cake. But this time, it was Mom's turn to look worried. She had always done her best to fulfill Selena's requests, but this time she hesitated. Sweetie, I know you're already quite pretty, but maybe it's time to think about losing a little weight, don't you think? I found it a bit amusing to see Mom's earnest yet overly cautious expression, as if she were terrified of accidentally setting off our little princess, Selena, and when she gets upset, it's like an earthquake hits the whole house. Sure enough, Selena plopped right down on the floor and started throwing a full-blown tantrum. Her heavy frame collided with the coffee table, sending everything on top clattering to the floor in a scattered mess. She paid no heed, wailing and thrashing about on the floor. You all think I'm fat, you all think I'm ugly, that's just how Selena is. She won't listen to a word of sense from her own family, yet she'll believe the most outrageous nonsense from strangers. I couldn't be bothered to watch that farce, so I turned and went back to my room. The beauty tax arrived 3 years later, right around the time Selena had been maintaining her weight loss for about 2 years. I wonder if she'll manage to become beautiful this time without my help. The next day at school, I had just taken my seat when I heard a bunch of guys chattering away in the row behind me. How is it that with twins, the older sister is so gorgeous, but the younger one is as ugly as sin? Every time I heard that kind of talk, I jumped to my feet, ready to defend Selena, but all it ever got me was more of Selena's resentment and jealousy. She even thought my standing up for her was just an act. I was aware of all this, but I always put it down to her own deep-seated insecurity. I thought that if I could just make her beautiful too, she would eventually understand that I truly had her best interests at heart, but that day never came. This time, I chose to look the other way, with no one to stop them. Those boys grew more and more animated in their conversation, and the things they said became increasingly vile. Look at that fat pig. She actually had the nerve to confess her feelings. Forget Jensen not liking her. Even a homeless man would run for the hills. The moment Selena walked into the classroom, she was met with the boys' cruel taunts, her face flushed crimson with rage, yet she didn't dare confront the boys directly. Then she saw me, sitting at my desk as if nothing was wrong, and her anger flared up all over again. Evelina, you did that on purpose. Why didn't you back me up? She stood in front of my desk, hands on her hips, looking as angry as if I'd been the one who said those things. I pretended to console her, saying, "Don't you know, Selena, some boys only say things like that to get your attention. Don't think what I'm saying is absurd." These were her exact words in a past life. Selena is a strange mix of self-awareness and delusion. She knows she's no match for me, yet she absolutely refuses to admit she's unattractive. Every time I stand up for her, she acts like I've ruined her chances and tells me to mind my own business. Really? You think they're just trying to get my attention? Just as I expected. After hearing what I said, Selena started to hesitate. I nodded. Of course, spare the rod and spoil the child, as they say. Her blind confidence sometimes reached such a level that she was completely beyond reason. I knew it. With a haughty toss of her hair, she went back to her seat. I noticed that for the entire next class, she wasn't paying attention at all. Instead, her gaze kept drifting, almost imperceptibly, towards those boys. However, the confidence my little pep talk gave her didn't last long. That very same evening, she went and confessed her feelings to Jensen again, and once more, she did it right out in the open, in front of everyone. Just like before, Jensen turned her down, publicly and for all to see. She was crying her heart out, like a distraught child. The moment she got home that evening, she started yelling at me, "Evelina, you lied to me. You just can't stand to see me happy. They clearly don't like me, and you had the nerve to say they did." The minute Selena walked through the door, she started throwing things and smashing stuff. She was having a complete meltdown, rampaging around like a wild bull. If I hadn't dodged out of the way, she probably would have bowled me over. Seeing this, my dad rushed to stop her, scolding me while trying to calm her down. Half an hour later, as if they had come to some sort of decision, they knocked on my door. "Dad told you to help me get pretty, starting now." I knew it. Things are starting to play out just like they did in my last life. "But do you really think I'm going to be stupid enough to be nice to you again?" "Sure. But I don't know the first thing about getting pretty. How am I supposed to help you?" My dad chimed in then, trying to persuade me. "Evelina, you've got to help your sister out, otherwise, she'll never get married." I let out a sigh and put on a helpless face. "Dad, it's not that I don't want to help her. I was just born looking like this. What secret could I possibly have?" My father was stumped by the question. After a moment's thought, he realized I had a point and declared, "All right then. Selena, from now on, you eat whatever your sister eats. No more being picky." "Okay," Selena agreed without hesitation. "Since I don't have any need to diet and don't really restrict what I eat, I just focus on a balanced, nutritious diet and have a consistent workout routine. I've always managed to keep in good shape." My dad told her to follow my exact diet and workout routine, knowing her, if she sticks with it for a full month, I'll eat my hat. Sure enough, that evening, Mom made a plate of stir-fried crown daisy with rice, plus a bowl of steamed egg for each of us. Honestly, this diet is just our regular everyday meals, except Selena gets 2 extra large fried chicken drumsticks on the side. Without the chicken legs today, she could barely bring herself to eat. Watching me eat a bite of greens, then a bite of rice with such ease, Selena was on the verge of losing it. "Is this even human food? You're trying to starve me." I gave her a cool glance. She had flung her chopsticks aside, sat there fuming for a good while, then sheepishly picked them back up and started eating. She barely touched her meal, while I polished off half a plate of vegetables, a whole steamed egg, and a fist-sized portion of rice. Half an hour after the meal, I started my workout. I have a solid fitness foundation, so the exercises I do are nearly impossible for her to complete, even though I'm fully aware of this. I don't point it out to her. My parents sat on the sofa supervising her, while I opened the homepage of the fitness influencer Pamela. Let's start with 3 high-intensity HIIT workout videos to ease into it. Selena was completely wiped out before she was even halfway through the first video, collapsing on the floor and throwing a tantrum. To be fair, it's not her fault. Pamela's workouts are meant to be built up gradually. And the first video jumped right into jumping jacks and burpees. No wonder she couldn't handle it. Seeing her whine and roll around in exhaustion, her parents waved it off and said, "Let's try again tomorrow." That same night, Selena was already back in bed, complaining about how sore she was and how hungry she felt. Even after a greasy dinner, she'd still have a late-night snack, 2 packs of buldak noodles, loaded with extra cheese and a side of Coke. But today, her parents had hidden all that food, leaving her whining with hunger. The next day, Selena's legs and arms were sore. But the good news was she'd actually lost a full kilogram. She was practically limping the whole way to school. Those few jumps really did a number on her, given how out of shape she was. For lunch that day, I got a half portion of stir-fried shredded potatoes and a half portion of sweet and sour pork ribs from the cafeteria, with my usual fist-sized amount of rice. Selena's eyes lit up at the sight of the sweet and sour ribs. But then she let out a disdainful snort. "You're just being mean. You know I'm trying to lose weight, and you're eating this high-calorie food right in front of me." Well, I'm not having any, so she went and swapped it for a plate of steamed broccoli. I couldn't help but feel a bit of admiration for her. Her willpower was way stronger than I'd imagined, but it's not like I made sweet and sour pork ribs just to tease her. I eat them too, just not very often. After that rather unpalatable lunch, Selena's stomach started rumbling halfway through her afternoon class. I finally made it through the school day, and for dinner, my mom made stir-fried green beans and steamed shrimp. It was a perfect low-calorie meal, and both dishes are things I absolutely love. Selena polished off 10 shrimp in one go, and then it was time for her workout. This time, she still managed to get through half of the exercise video. I kept up this regular routine for a week, even though Selena had visibly slimmed down a lot. Her weight had stopped dropping. How is this fair? I ate so little yesterday, why didn't I lose a single pound? I shook my head, indicating I didn't know, but deep down, I knew it was just a plateau. All I had to do was push through it. My younger sister, however, was convinced my method had hit its limit. She decided to start exploring new weight loss methods on her own. I let out a cold laugh. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. From that day on, my sister started dieting to lose weight. One day she would only drink water, and the next day she would only eat eggs. This weight loss method caused her to drop over 20 pounds directly, making her look a whole size smaller. But at the same time, she stopped exercising altogether. As she put it, "I lose more weight by doing nothing than you do by working out." When this method hit another plateau, she started doing consecutive liquid fasts. Her personal record was going 3 whole days without eating a single bite. My parents were beside themselves with worry, watching her waste away, and asked me to talk some sense into her. I shook my head. What do I know about dieting? She's already lost the weight, so why fuss over how she did it? Since my parents couldn't get through to her, she just kept on with her extreme method. The more you suppress your appetite, the harder it bounces back. After yet another 3-day liquid fast, she started binge eating. At this point, her weight was around 65 kilograms, but no matter what she tried, it seemed permanently stuck there. In a fit of frustration and anger, she bought a huge pile of snacks: river snail rice noodles, fried chicken, roast duck, pig's trotters, cheese balls, Reggiano. She stuffed her face with all the high-calorie bombs she'd been too afraid to touch while dieting. By the time she realized what was happening, it had all gone down. A wave of panic washed over her. She completely broke down, especially when she saw she'd gained a full 6 pounds the next day. This was followed by another round of liquid fasting, and then another binge. Her erratic eating habits had our parents on the verge of tears, yet she persisted, doing things her own way. Then one day, I saw her bring home a long tube and insert it down her throat. I knew what it was: a purge tube, inserted into the stomach to pump out the recently eaten food. With this new method, Selena went back to her old habit of binge eating, indulging in whatever she craved without restraint, yet she never gained weight again. However, within half a year, one day after a meal, she suddenly collapsed onto the floor. Her panicked parents rushed her to the hospital, where she was diagnosed with gastric mucosal lesions and required a feeding tube for treatment. Her parents felt as if the sky were falling, seeing Selena, who had run herself ragged until she was sallow, gaunt, and her skin had lost its firmness. Their hearts ached even more for her. I just watched her coldly. Who else is there to blame for this outcome? In my past life, I warned her this would ruin her health, but she didn't believe me, thinking my weight loss method was holding her back. If I hadn't insisted and held my ground, she would have likely ended up the same way in her past life, in this life. If she had just stuck to my diet plan, taking it step by step, she could have lost the weight successfully, even with minimal exercise, but she thought it was too slow. You could say she brought all of this on herself. Selena spent nearly a year in the hospital before returning home, but unfortunately, she developed anorexia, yet she had no complaints. In fact, she was rather pleased with herself. Now I won't have any cravings for high-calorie food. I'll lose weight naturally, and indeed, she did lose weight. She went from 143 pounds down to 88 pounds in less than 6 months. Her skin became loose from the rapid weight loss, but her confidence started to return. When she returned to class, everyone gasped, "Is that really Selena? She used to be so heavy." Many boys started writing her love letters. Even Jensen, who once rejected her, has become one of her devoted followers. She's already much thinner than me, and she tells everyone, "Can you believe my sister weighs 108 Jean? I'm only 80 Jean." She even posted on social media, "Is 165 centimeters and 40 kilograms considered heavy?" The caption accompanied a mirror selfie showcasing her slender waist and legs, reading the flood of comments like, "The baby is so beautiful, and you're not fat at all," along with the anxious ones like, "I'm already 100 Jean, I must be really fat, right?" She couldn't stop grinning from ear to ear. After losing weight, she started considering plastic surgery and skin whitening. In my past life, I suggested she go to the hospital to treat her acne, and that cosmetic procedures should at most involve a slight eye corner lift. In this life, without my intervention, she got a nose job, an epicanthaloplasty, double eyelid surgery, and even had her jawbone shaved and 2 ribs removed. She was doing all this even during her senior year of high school, while everyone else was preparing for the college entrance exams. Because our daily lives were completely different, I hadn't paid much attention to her for nearly a year. In my past life, between helping her lose weight and improve her looks, and enduring her daily chatter about which guy was cute or who liked her, my own studies really fell behind. With her gone, all that familiar knowledge came flooding back to me. The year after the college entrance exams was when the so-called beauty tax was introduced. By this point, Selena had fully blossomed into a stunning beauty. Her nose was perfect. Her eyes were perfect, her face shape was perfect, every feature was flawless on its own, but somehow, when put together, they looked a bit odd. That didn't stop her from having a long line of suitors. Even though she didn't get into a good university, she managed to reel in quite a few rich heirs. As she strutted past me, designer bag on her arm and expensive jewelry sparkling, her expression was dripping with contempt. "Well, if it isn't my frumpy, old-fashioned sister, I should really thank you. If it weren't for all those years of you putting me down, I never would have become this beautiful." I let out a helpless laugh. "Putting you down? Where on earth did you get the idea that I've been doing that all this time?" She didn't even acknowledge me, just snorted coldly and walked away. Selena, of course, didn't get into any university. She probably wouldn't even have been accepted by a community college. When the beauty tax was announced, everyone was buzzing with novelty and curiosity. "Oh my, I actually scored a 7. Looks like I'll be paying more from now on." "What? I got an 8. I never thought I was that pretty." When this novel law was first introduced, it mostly sparked curiosity and a sense of competition. Nearly all women regarded it as an official benchmark for measuring their own beauty. Social media posts featuring photos were all tagged with something like, "Beauty tax score, XX points." Everyone treated it as a game of chasing after beauty. Some people are even willing to undergo cosmetic surgery to become more beautiful, regardless of the extra tax they'll have to pay. Yet, they feel overjoyed when they see the small print under a successful payment notification, "Beauty tax deduction, XX yuan." Selena was no exception. Even more astonishingly, her rating was a perfect 10. This is an exceptionally rare score among ordinary people. It's practically 1 in a million. The criteria are strict. Height must be at least 163 centimeters. Weight between 70 and 90 Jean, fair skin, delicate facial features, with even the width and bridge height of the nose, and the width and length of the eyes, all precisely defined, and my score is only a 9. Reason, weight exceeds 90 Jean. Just after school that day, I saw Selena waiting for me downstairs at my dorm, looking utterly smug. Well, if it isn't my dear sister, I got a perfect 10. What about you?" I gave her a cool glance. She was dressed much more fashionably now, in a denim miniskirt that had her figure, highlighting how skinny she was. I'd give it a 9. Hearing that, she burst out laughing, then bought 2 colas from the vending machine next to us. Facial recognition successful, beauty tax applied at 50%, total, 10, 5 yuan. With that, she tossed one of the colas to me. "Ugly wretch, ever tasted a soda that costs over $5? I let out a soft chuckle. So she came all this way just to show off to me. She didn't deign to stay a moment longer. Hearing that, she turned and clacked away in her heels. In this life, she seemed different from the poverty-stricken person she was in her last. In her past life, she wasn't so extreme and managed to get into a decent university. So it seems she never latched onto any rich heirs this time around. As an officially certified perfect 10, she never lacked for attention from wealthy suitors. Now, with the arrival of the beauty tax, the standards of beauty have been officially codified. Those officially recognized as beautiful receive far more favor, while women with scores of 1 or 2 are subjected to the same vicious ridicule once aimed at Selena. No one feels sorry for them, no one pities them. Even traits like being slightly too tall, a bit too short, having a flatter nose, or a higher hairline, all sorts of labels are now used to impose rigid aesthetic standards on women, and not a single woman emerges victorious in this systemic war. I've also found myself surrounded by more admirers and supporters. Even those who never considered me particularly beautiful or disliked certain aspects of me are now going out of their way to shower me with praise, just to fit in. I know all of this is pathological, and I have no desire to wallow in such hollow flattery. Is this kind of beauty truly beautiful, and who gets to set the standard? To save the money deducted by the beauty tax, I had to take on multiple jobs just to get by. Just like in my previous life, I don't seem to have changed much, but Selena's life has been turned upside down. The only thing I changed was my connection to Selena. I'm now quite certain she thoroughly enjoys the beauty tax, as it has freed her from financial worries. Naturally, she no longer sees becoming beautiful as a burden, let alone a reason to kill me. However, I never expected the upheaval to happen so quickly. Roughly 2 years had passed since my death in the previous life when people gradually began to realize that the standards of beauty were starting to shift. Features like monolids and flat noses, once considered low-scoring, suddenly became the new gold standard. The standards of beauty were turned completely upside down almost overnight. My rating plummeted to a 2 overnight. How did this happen? A few of my roommates saw their scores flip. The one who had a 6 got an 8, the one with a 7 dropped to a 5, and the one with a 2 skyrocketed to a 9. Everyone completely lost it, including Selena. Her perfect 10 had been slashed to a 1. She no longer had to pay such a high price for her lifestyle, but in doing so, she lost the aura of being the beauty. She couldn't accept this reality. The rich kid dumped her, and no one liked her anymore. Meanwhile, my life remained completely unchanged. Still holed up in the dorm, living and studying on a shoestring budget. Something seems off with the world. If the act of rating people's looks to determine beauty was already absurd, the current state of affairs is downright ludicrous. The new, widely accepted standard of beauty has become dark skin, acne, a double chin, and a prominent belly. So, how did we get here? My guess is that this is just a way to collect more money. A huge number of people, unable to bear such a change and the resulting disparity, rush to get plastic surgery to meet the new standard, all just to qualify for the beauty tax benefits. Meanwhile, another group of people would get surgery to continue evading the tax. Selena now falls into the first category. When I saw her again, that familiar look from the past had returned, since her stomach had been ruined. She could barely eat, so she opted for a new cosmetic procedure, hormone-induced weight gain. She looked almost exactly as she did at 16. She bought me another Coke. Facial recognition successful. Beauty tax applied. 50%. Total. 10. 5 yuan. Ugly wretch. Ever had a 5 yuan plus cola before? I smiled at him with a touch of pity. I tipped the glass of cola. 2 more years passed, and the standards for the beauty score had been revised over a dozen times, both major and minor. Every time I saw Selena, she was different from before. I could no longer tell what was ugly and what was beautiful, but now, Selena just seemed like a monster. 6 months later, Selena was gone. Stomach cancer. Her stomach had been ravaged beyond recognition. I felt a flicker of vengeful satisfaction, but it was just that, a flicker, looking at these ratings that deduct a different amount each time. I can't help but wonder, who, exactly, gets to define what is beautiful and what is ugly? Who is truly bound by the shackles of beauty standards? The moment you hand over the right to judge yourself to others, you've already lost your autonomy. These days, I still maintain a regular routine of healthy eating and exercise. I'm not concerned with beauty or appearance. It's about health, about taking responsibility for myself, and that's enough. Story 2. After being reborn, I decisively took my parents on a trip, leaving my sister behind at home. In my past life, my sister threw a party at home that accidentally started a fire and killed our mother. Afterward, she turned around and blamed me, crying to our father. My sister said she wanted to set off fireworks, but she accidentally lit the curtains on fire. And then, it's all my fault for not stopping her. I'm the reason Mom died like this. I want to explain, but my boyfriend stepped forward and testified. I saw with my own eyes that you bought the fireworks. Don't even try to deny it. In a fit of rage, My father had me thrown into prison, where I languished until my dying day. Only after I died did I discover that my boyfriend and my sister had been having an affair. They deliberately set the fire to kill me and take the family fortune for themselves. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back to the day of the fire. My phone started ringing. Seeing that it was my sister Mina calling, I answered it without thinking. Mina's voice came through the phone. "Sis, I want to throw a party at home. But you know how mom and dad hate it when the house gets all messy." Before I could even respond, she just kept rambling on. "Oh, and I want some fireworks to play with. Could you buy me a few? Don't tell mom and dad. Okay, you're the best, sis. I know you'd do anything for me, and this is such a small thing anyway. You should come to the party tonight too. It'll be so much fun, perfect for you to unwind after such a long week at work." She was being all sweet and pleading over the phone, not even giving me a chance to respond before she quickly hung up. A chill ran down my spine as I listened to the dial tone buzzing in my ear. Staring at my reflection, I saw cold sweat beating across my forehead. I had been reborn, transported back to the day of the fire. My parents adopted Mina when I was 5 years old. From that day on, I treated her like my own sister. On this very day in my past life, she was the one who called me. She asked me to help buy fireworks and keep the party a secret from our parents. I agreed without giving it a second thought. When my dad, who had been working at the office for days on end, called to check in on how things were at home, I casually told him everything was fine. After I bought fireworks and returned home, I unexpectedly encountered a fire. I pried the door open and narrowly escaped with my life. A crowd of residents had gathered downstairs, along with firefighters. Before I could process what was happening, Mina came running from nearby and grabbed my arm tightly. Her face was pale, and large teardrops were streaming down her cheeks. "Sis, why would you do this?" She screamed accusations at me. "Why did you have to set off fireworks? Did you even realize your fireworks set the house on fire?" Mom was trapped inside and burned alive. She was sobbing uncontrollably, her whole body shaking with grief. My mind went completely blank. I couldn't process what was happening. Mina dragged me to the stretcher, which was covered with a white sheet. With trembling hands, I lifted a corner of the white sheet. It was a body burned by the fire. I could barely make out my mother's features. I couldn't believe it, feeling completely dazed. Wasn't mom at work? How could this? Dad walked up to me with bloodshot eyes and a cold expression. Adira, you told me everything was fine. Is this what you call fine?" Her boyfriend, who rushed over upon hearing the news, also testified in support of his sister. "No one can ever stop her from doing whatever she wants. She must have set off fireworks indoors and caused the fire." Mina, her eyes red from crying, shouted at me with a hoarse voice. "Sis, why won't you just admit you're wrong? Mom is already dead. Are you happy now?" This sentence completely enraged my father. With a dark expression, he slapped me to the ground. The onlookers all started blaming me. In the end, my own father was the one who put me behind bars. It wasn't until later that I found out Mina and Kieran had been seeing each other all along. They meant to burn me alive, but I managed to escape. After accidentally killing my mother in the fire, they decided to frame me for it, and so, filled with bitterness, I died in prison with tears in my eyes, consumed by sorrow. Little did I know that after my death, Mina would scheme to get her hands on the inheritance right away. She turned her back on years of parental love and let her biological mother murder our father. Given a second chance at life, I will never let their scheme succeed again. I called my mom and told her I managed to snag tickets to her favorite Dowling concert. There are 3 tickets in total. Told her and Dad to get ready to travel out of town for the concert together. "What about Mina?" Mom hesitated. I had a feeling she would ask about Mina. I calmly told her that Mina is staying at the dorm tonight and won't be coming home. After finalizing the time with Mom, I called Chloe, Mina's biological mother. Mina has known she was adopted since childhood, and my parents had even invited Chloe over to our house before. That's also when I saved Chloe's number. After the call connected, I invited her to the party Mina is hosting tonight. "Auntie, Mina hasn't seen you in so long. She really misses you. Don't tell her in advance that you're coming. It'd be better to just show up tonight and surprise her." She agreed without a second thought. After the concert, my parents and I decided to stay there for the night before heading home. The next day, as planned, I made it home first. I could see from downstairs that my home had been burned down, and the fire had just been put out. I saw a body covered with a white sheet being carried out from inside. Passers-by were whispering among themselves. "What happened here? The fire was just extinguished. Oh my God, someone actually burned to death." I was about to step forward to ask what happened when I saw a scene almost identical to the one from my previous life. Mina rushed over, grabbed me, and pulled me toward the corpse. Her face was pale and streaked with tears. She shrieked at me, "Sis, how could you do this? You've killed our mother. Kieran, who was standing nearby, rushed over and joined Mina in confronting me. Adira, that was your own mother. How could you harm her? Their voices were so loud that they quickly drew the attention of several passers-by. I put on an innocent face, pretending not to understand. What are you talking about, sis? I didn't harm Mom, Mina sobbed, large teardrops streaming down her face. Sis, I never thought you'd be like this. It was you who insisted on setting off fireworks indoors, and you kept going even though Mom objected. With that, she threw herself onto the corpse and wept. You still refuse to admit it now. She didn't even give me a chance to argue back, firing off one sentence after another, getting more and more worked up. Sis, why do you have to be like this? Do you have to tear this family apart and destroy everything before you're satisfied? Did I do something wrong? Did Mom do something wrong? Why are you so determined to hurt her like this? You're just jealous that Mom and Dad treat me better and don't pay as much attention to you. Adira, you must take responsibility for Mom's death. Mina's voice was sharp and loud. The crowd that had dispersed earlier now swarmed back all at once to watch the drama unfold. Could this be premeditated murder? TSK, so young, yet so vicious. Driven by jealousy of her own sister to kill their mother. How heartless can one be? That's terrifying. If you cross her, she might just burn your house down in a fit of rage. Why is her boyfriend still taking her sister's side? How could you still help this murderer? Does your conscience not ache? Hearing this, my throat tightened and my body trembled slightly, but this time, I was no longer afraid. Seeing my pale face and trembling body, Mina and Kieran thought I was scared and decided to strike while the iron was hot. The two of them kept escalating their accusations against me. I told you, I didn't do any of this. Mina, with red-rimmed eyes, scanned the surrounding residence. Her voice trembled with emotion. With so many witnesses here, Adira, how can you still have the nerve to deny it? Where do you place your parents who have loved and cared for you all these years? And where do you place me? Mina clutched her chest, seemingly heartbroken by my cold indifference. The elderly onlookers couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh at the scene. An elderly lady even handed Mina a tissue and offered her a few words of comfort. I said with a cold expression, no matter how much you cry or make a scene, I won't admit to something I didn't do. Kieran looked utterly shocked as he walked over and took my hand. Adira, you're my girlfriend, but I fell in love with your honest self. Not this dishonest version of you. Let's go apologize to Mina first. Then turn ourselves in. No matter what happens, I'll wait for you. Kieran looked at me with deep affection, his words moving everyone who witnessed the moment. What an absolutely incredible man. He's just too good to be true. Such a wonderful guy. Adira is so incredibly lucky, isn't she? She must have done some incredible good deeds in her past life to have such a devoted boyfriend waiting for her. Even after committing murder, the memory of Kieran and Mina putting on their sickeningly sweet display of affection during their prison visit in my past life makes me nauseous just thinking about it. 3. Kieran appeared to be gently guiding me, but in reality, he was forcefully dragging me over to Mina and pressing down on me to make me bow in apology. I saw exactly how much your mother cherished and loved me. She wasn't just your mother, but Mina's too. And now you've taken away the person Mina loved most, Adira. As your boyfriend, it's my duty to set you straight and help you turn over a new leaf. Start by apologizing to Mina. If cutting ties is what it takes to earn forgiveness, so be it. My heart skipped a beat at the mention of severing ties. The only reason they wanted me dead was for the family fortune. Now that they've discovered I'm still alive, they're forcing me to cut ties immediately, once I sever ties with my family. I'll no longer be considered part of the clan. With me out of the picture, Mina stands to inherit the entire estate. We're talking at least several $1 million, cutting off family ties. On what grounds? I shook off Kieran's hand and took 2 steps back, refusing to accept this. Kieran flew into a rage, furious at my defiance and resistance. What's your problem, Adira? You've thrown this house into chaos. With Aunt's passing and Mina heartbroken. How dare you act so arrogantly without an ounce of remorse? You won't even cut ties. After poisoning your aunt like this, are you even human? The onlookers erupted in an uproar, all pointing fingers at me. How could you do this? You killed someone and still won't admit it. TSK, what a vicious heart. Her parents are truly cursed with misfortune. If you didn't do it, then show me the proof. Your word means nothing without evidence. Mina's weeping grew increasingly heart-wrenching. Stop it. Don't defend me anymore. She deliberately caused Mom's death. I'm calling the police. I want them to deliver justice. Let's see how much longer she can keep up that arrogant act. Mina dialed 110, and the police said they'd be there shortly. The onlookers had no intention of leaving now. They all stayed put, eager to see how the drama would unfold. As for me, I just rolled my eyes at Mina's words and stayed completely unfazed. She'd never guess. I was actually hoping the police would show up soon. Let's find out who the real killer is. About 10 minutes later, before the police arrived, my father showed up first, for Dad hurried over, dragging his suitcase behind him. What happened? How did our house catch fire? Mina suddenly rushed over to him, threw her arms around him, and burst into tears. Dad, the house is on fire. It's all Adira's fault. She killed Mom last night. She insisted on setting off fireworks. I told her not to, but she wouldn't listen. Then she accidentally set the house on fire, and Mom got trapped inside. She burned to death. She was the one who talked me into throwing the party. Mom's gone. Dad, Mom is dead. Mina spoke through sobs, her words jumbled by grief, yet what she was saying remained decipherable. After hearing Mina's words, Dad's face darkened, grim and stormy, but Mina kept on weeping, completely unaware. Dad, you have to get justice for Mom. Adira still refuses to admit it. Mom was so gentle and kind, she loved me and Adira so much, but now she can't rest in peace. All I want now is for Mina to cut ties with our family. She doesn't deserve to be one of us. Mina's tone grew increasingly intense, lost in her own delusions, completely unaware of the growing unease in her father's eyes. Karen chimed in, Mina has to face the consequences for what she's done. We'll make sure she turns herself in when the time comes, finally. After locking eyes with her father's murderous glare, Mina's words trailed off abruptly. Flustered, Mina stammered, Dad, what's wrong? Her father's chest heaved with increasing intensity, his lips pressed tightly together. Mina blurted out the worst possible thing. Dad, Mina killed Mom. Her father slapped her across the face. The sharp crack of the blow caught Mina completely off guard. The elderly onlookers erupted in shocked murmurs. What's going on? Wait, is this father out of his mind? He slapped the wrong person. How could he be so cruel to his own daughter? Karen was stunned by what he saw, and it took him a couple of seconds to snap out of it before rushing over to the father and helping Mina up. Uncle, it was clearly Adira who caused your wife's death. Why are you hitting Mina? Dad's icy glare froze Karen in place, silencing his next words. Karen had never seen such a terrifying look from his father before, and he froze on the spot. What gives you the right to meddle in our family's affairs? Dad, why did you hit me? It was clearly my sister who— Mina's voice trembled with tears as she covered her face and looked at her father, but he cut her off before she could finish speaking. Are you sure Adira was at your party last night and set the fire that killed your mom? Yes, Mina nodded emphatically without hesitation. Dad, I didn't know Mom was home. If I had known, I would never have let my sister set off fireworks inside the house. Meanwhile, my boyfriend Kieran stepped forward to testify on Mina's behalf. Adira loves fireworks too. She said she'd never played with them before, and insisted we set some off at today's party. If it wasn't her setting off fireworks indoors, who else could it be? As soon as Kieran finished speaking, Mina chimed in agreement, tears streaming down her face. She pleaded, Dad, you have to stand up for me, and for Mom too. Seizing the opportunity, Kieran walked over, helped Mina up from the floor, and turned to address his father. Uncle, Mina's party would have been fine if it weren't for Adira. She insisted on setting off fireworks indoors. We tried to stop her, but she wouldn't listen. That's what led to this tragedy and cost you your beloved wife. My blood ran cold hearing that. Kieran deliberately emphasized the words beloved wife, making sure Dad couldn't miss it. In our family, Dad loves Mom the most. Then me and my sister come second. We used to joke that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Mom wanting a child. Mom was never in the best of health, so Dad never really expected her to have children. They thought it would be fine to spend their lives just the two of them, but Mom loved kids, so she went ahead and had me. I had mentioned this to Kieran before, but I never expected the tables to turn on me like this. Isn't he just trying to kill with a borrowed knife, making Dad blame me? Just like in my past life when I was sent to prison and died in misery. Now I see this person's true, ugly nature clearly. The situation has escalated to the point where the onlooking residents are completely shocked. They still can't figure out what's really going on, or why they're not confronting me, the daughter who caused our mother's death. Kieran yelled at me, Adira, stop making excuses. A mistake is a mistake. Just apologize first. I was so angry I almost laughed. Mina continued to frame me, saying, Sis, do you really have to be this heartless? When she met her father's furious glare, her words stumbled out in a frightened stammer. Dad, what's wrong with you? Just as the words were spoken, Mom squeezed through the crowd, lugging bags of all sizes. She looked utterly bewildered. Honey, what's going on? The moment they saw their mother, Mina and Karen turned pale as a sheet. My dad and I naturally took the things from Mom's hands. Mom stared in surprise at her youngest daughter, whose face was streaked with tears. Mina snapped out of her shock, her sorrowful gaze shifting in an instant. She stared at her mother in disbelief, then threw her arms around her. Mom, you're alive. I thought you were. She burst into sobs before she could even finish her sentence, with a dark expression. Dad pushed Mina aside before Mom could say a word. You have no right to call her that. Mina immediately broke down in tears. Dad, I made a mistake. I thought it was Mom who had passed away. Mom looked completely bewildered, furrowing her brow as she asked me what happened. I explained everything to her in detail, holding nothing back. After I finished, Mom covered her chest with her hand, her eyes slightly reddened. Mina, how could you lie? Mina waved her hands and explained, Mom, it's my fault. I made a mistake. I thought that body was you, but Adira really did kill someone. Mom, you have to believe me. Karen stepped forward to agree. That's right. Although the body wasn't yours, Auntie, Adira did commit arson and murder. These two really don't think before they speak. Father's face darkened. Adira, I've known about your lying habit since you were little, something your mother and I have always worried about. But I never expected you'd have the nerve to lie to your own father. At first, Dad spoke calmly, but his tone grew increasingly intense and his demeanor more aggressive as he went on. The last sentence was practically shouted at Mina. Mina shuddered, startled by the loud voice. She still defended herself in a hushed voice. Dad, you have to believe me. Adira really did kill someone. Dad's mouth twitched, clearly seething with anger. Stop talking nonsense. 5. This is absolutely outrageous. The older you get, the worse you behave. Mina flushed crimson from her father's scolding, standing frozen in place with tear-filled eyes. She couldn't hold back her grievances and yelled at her father, You're just favoring her. You can't let her get away without admitting her guilt just because she's your biological daughter. I've never heard you say a single bad word about her, just because I'm not your biological child. You don't trust me at all. Then why did you and Mom even adopt me in the first place? The crowd erupted in gasps at this unexpected twist. Adopted. No wonder I thought the parents looked nothing like the girl. Exactly. You can't play favorites just because she's not biological. This is murder we're talking about. Judging by the parents' attitude, Mina must have endured a lot of hardship. Dad's chest heaved violently as he pointed a trembling finger at Mina. How dare you bite the hand that feeds you? Have you no conscience at all? Just as he finished speaking, several police officers emerged from the crowd, who called the police. Mina immediately raised her hand. It was me, officer. I want to report Adira for arson and murder. The mother stepped forward angrily. I sneered inwardly. That's a lie. Dad walked over to Officer Andy. Officer, these two are slandering my daughter. They should be arrested. Mina pointed at the corpse. This is proof that Adira set the fire and killed an innocent person. Andy frowned. Where is Adira? I walked over with a calm expression. Seeing Mina's confident demeanor, I couldn't help but smirk. Officer, I need to say something. Mina cut me off. Stop making excuses. I completely ignored her and kept talking. Last night, I was at a concert out of town with my parents. I wasn't even home. The moment these words were spoken, the onlookers were utterly stunned. Another plot twist. No way. Is Mina lying through her teeth? If this turns out to be false, filing a baseless report is actually a crime. The whispers around her reached Mina's ears, and her expression twisted with discomfort. Seeing her like that, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Calmly, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the concert footage I'd recorded, along with a photo of my parents and me at the scene. Officer, take a look. This is the video I shot at the scene, and here's a photo. This is my ticket purchase confirmation. Andy's expression grew increasingly grim as he watched. He turned to look at Mina. When you accused her of arson and murder, did you have evidence placing her at the scene? Mina pressed her pale lips together, remained silent for a long while. Seeing the situation, Karen hurried over, steadied Mina who seemed about to collapse. Officer, Adira is the one who killed this person. Why would we lie about it? I let out a scoff. Karen. Sometimes I wonder, are you actually my boyfriend, or are you Mina's? The room erupted in murmurs at that remark. What's going on here? Haven't you noticed this guy keeps siding with his girlfriend's sister? He's not even taking his girlfriend's side. Yikes, no way. That's so messy. Is the boyfriend falling for the girlfriend's sister? Wasn't it because the girlfriend was blamed for her mom's death? He probably believed it was true and chose principles over personal ties, but now it's obvious the sister is lying, yet this guy still jumps to her defense. Listening to the bystanders' conversation, I continued with a cold sneer. Mina, Kieran, one is my own sister, the other is my longtime boyfriend. I never imagined you two would sneak around behind my back. As the words hung in the air, the room fell into dead silence. Everyone was stunned. Their astonished gazes shifting back and forth between Kieran and Mina. Kieran awkwardly let go of Mina's arm. He explained, No. Just then, an elderly woman in the crowd cut him off. The woman raised her voice and pointed at Kieran. I knew it. My instincts were right all along. Something felt off from the start, clearly taking sides against his own. At first, I thought you were this girl's boyfriend. She finally pointed at Mina, who was being stared at by everyone, and immediately started waving her hands in denial. No, I'm not. Mom and Dad looked at Mina in disbelief. Dad's face darkened even more. Mina. What did mom and dad teach you about being a decent person? You've shamed us, Mina sobbed and sniffled, crying out no, and it's not true. And you, dad glared at Kieran, you shameless person, you bastard, how dare you bully my daughter, shameless, not only did you mistreat our Adira, but you also hooked up with Armina. Ugh, growing angrier with every word, Dad charged at Kieran. A fist landed squarely on Kieran's unsuspecting face. Kieran was completely stunned. The corner of his mouth immediately swelled and turned blue. 6. Passers-by rushed to restrain the furious father, trying to calm him down. There are police officers right here. That's enough. I watched Mina slowly trying to slip away from the crowd. I suddenly called out to her, Mina, where are you going? She froze, and everyone turned to look at her. No, I didn't go anywhere. I crossed my arms and said, this matter isn't resolved yet. Here's the proof that I was out with my parents. What else do you have to say? You're accusing me of burning someone to death and ruining my reputation. You're still lying through your teeth. First you claimed the body was mom's, but the moment you saw her alive, you changed your story and accused me of burning an innocent person to death, Mina. I never imagined you'd have the nerve to frame me without even properly identifying the body. If I'd been alone last night with no witnesses or evidence, you would have actually succeeded in setting me up. Mina choked up. Sis, I cut her off. Don't call me sister. I don't deserve it. Our family has no one like you. Andy's expression turned serious, and from my words, he knew this matter was no small thing. He told me to go with Mina and Kieran to the police station first to investigate thoroughly. Of course, I wasn't afraid, agreed without hesitation, but Mina and Kieran's expression suddenly changed upon hearing this. Mina suddenly stepped in front of her parents. Thud, she dropped to her knees with a heavy impact. Tears welled in her eyes as she clutched her mother's hand. Mom, Dad, I was wrong. I don't want to go to the police station. Her mother's eyes were red-rimmed, her voice quivering as she pulled her hand free from Mina's grasp. Don't call me Mom. You know exactly how this family has treated you. When have we ever let you come to harm? Haven't we given you everything you've ever asked for? You treacherous schemer, Father said coldly. What's there to fear about going to the police station? Could it be that you have a guilty conscience? That sentence sent a shiver down Mina's spine. I watched from the side, let out a scoff, and chimed in, exactly. The innocent have nothing to fear, as long as you didn't kill anyone. Mina cut me off abruptly, turning her head to yell at me. Shut your mouth. I didn't kill anyone. It wasn't me. The more panicked she got, the more thrilled I became. I put on an innocent face and spread my hands. I never said you were the one who killed them. Mina was left speechless by that remark. I added, by the way, you've been grilling me about my whereabouts last night. What about yours, Mina? Weren't you hosting a party last night? You must have been at home, right? The commotion started up again all around, right? They kept asking about Adira, but what about hers? Look at her, the party she threw. Could she really have killed someone and framed Adira for it? Damn, if that's true, this woman is seriously terrifying. Mina stammered hesitantly. I last night, Andy frowned and urged Mina again. Miss, if you don't get up and come with us now, we'll have to take you by force. Mina refused to get up, shuffling on her knees as she clung to her father's leg. Dad, no, please, I don't want to go to jail. I was wrong. I'll apologize to my sister. I'll say I'm sorry. Dad, please don't send me to prison. As soon as these words were spoken, the room erupted in murmurs once again. Some people even pulled out their phones to record the scene. Get out. Holy crap, it's really her. She got so startled she gave herself away. She's the actual murderer. That woman's been hiding her true colors deep. Dad turned his head away, refusing to look at her. Mina begged her mother for mercy. 7. Mom, I was wrong. Please save me. Mom, she suddenly started slapping herself, slapping himself while cursing at himself. I'm shameless. Mom and Dad, I beg you, I'll change, but I don't want to go to jail. You can hit me or scold me all you want. I'll even do it for you. Seeing Mina in such a pitiful state, Kieran quickly knelt down in front of me. He reached out and grabbed at me. Adira, you can't be foolish enough to just stand by and watch your sister go to jail. Your sister just had a momentary lapse in judgment. She didn't mean it. I looked down at him coldly. Ugh, what a despicable couple. I spoke up. Help her. Kieran nodded, a look of delight on his face. If you help her, I'll come back to you and love you forever, he declared with unwavering conviction. I laughed. How could this shameless man have such a thick skin? I opened my mouth and spoke, enunciating each word deliberately. I won't help her, and I won't help you either. Did you really think Mina was the only one involved in this? You're her accomplice. Kieran's face instantly turned deathly pale. He suddenly kowtowed to me repeatedly, bowing several times. My forehead was bruised and swollen, but I still refused to back down. Bystanders were recording videos with their phones, saying they'd post them online to make him famous. How shameless. Hitting on his own sister-in-law, good grief, there's no end to the weirdos in this world. What was that girl thinking, falling for a man like him? You know what, he's actually genuine about that family's youngest daughter. One sharp-eyed person pointed out the truth. Nonsense, genuine my foot, he's clearly just afraid that if the girl gets caught, he'll be an accomplice too. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone around suddenly understood. Kieran's blood boiled at those words. His temper flaring from being provoked by those who were just stirring up trouble, his eyes bloodshot, he glared at the crowd, causing passers-by to step back, though they continued taking photos. My God, that look in his eyes, it's like he wants to devour us all. If he hadn't done such a filthy thing with that woman, why would he end up like this? Mina was still crying and fussing, even shouting for Kieran. Kieran, quick, beg your sister for help. Each cry was more pitiful than the last, as if they were the ones who had been deceived and wronged. Just then, an officer came over from the body and whispered a few words to Andy. Andy nodded and jotted it down in his notepad. Then he announced to us, "We've identified the body. The deceased is Margaret, 45 years old." Mina's eyes widened in shock, as if struck by lightning. I covered my mouth, feigning surprise. Oh my God, isn't this your birth mother? How could she, then? With a look of sudden realization, I turned to Mina and said, "Oh, you burned your own mother to death." Mina trembled all over as she rushed to the corpse and pulled back the white sheet. Suddenly, her legs gave way, and she dropped to her knees before the body. She burst into tears, crying, Mom, how could this happen?" Kieran also looked stunned, muttering to himself, how could it be Mina's own mother? I was fanning the flames from the sidelines. "Did you two even check who you were burning before setting the place on fire?" Kieran snarled at me. "Shut up." I curled the corner of my mouth, looking completely unfazed. "How dare you? You're the ones who committed the murder and framed me. And now you've even realized you got the wrong person. Tisk, Kieran. Have some shame, will you?" I was just about to walk over to the police. Little did I expect that Kieran's hatred would unleash his ferocity. I had barely taken a step when Kieran suddenly sprang to his feet. Before I could even process what was happening, he grabbed me by the throat, spun me around, and held me hostage from behind. He pulled a folding knife from his pocket and pressed it against my neck. In just those few moments, everyone around us backed away several steps, the air filling with panicked shouts and chaos. Dad stared at Kieran with bloodshot eyes, his voice hoarse. "Kieran, have you lost your mind? Put a diary down." 8. Mom seemed on the verge of collapse, nearly fainting. Dad held onto Mom as she leaned against him, not daring to take another step forward. "I'm the crazy one. You're the ones who pushed me to this." I knelt down. I even kowtowed. "Why won't you just leave Mina and me alone?" Mina was also terrified by Kieran's furious outburst, standing frozen in place. "What happened?" Passers-by urged Kieran to calm down. "Young man, don't act rashly. Let's talk this through and find a solution." "Exactly. That's a human life you're holding in your hands." I have to admit, I never expected Kieran to have the guts for this. For a moment, it felt like I was thrown back to a past life, that sensation of teetering on the brink of death. I took a moment to collect myself, then quietly tried to reason with Kieran. "Don't act on impulse. If you kill me, you'll only make the charges against you worse." Kieran, clearly agitated, yelled at me to shut up. Kieran dragged me backward as the crowd slowly parted to make way. Mina pleaded with her father. "Dad, I don't want to go to jail. Please." Father looked at me with concern. I shook my head gently at my father. "Even if it kills me, I'll make sure they get what they deserve in the end." Father steeled himself and looked at her coldly, pressing his lips together. He spoke only after a long pause. "Mina, from now on, you're no longer part of this family." Mina cast a long, profound look at her father and mother, then turned her gaze toward Kieran, who was holding me captive. She knew there was no turning back now. Suddenly, she burst into laughter. Mina's hair was disheveled, her eyes fierce and menacing. She ran to my side. "Adira, if you won't let us go, we won't let you go either." She leaned close to my ear, her tone utterly cruel. "Just wait until we're alone. You'll see what I have in store for you, you shameless bitch." Everyone was at a standoff. Andy took a small step forward. In a panic, Kieran grazed my neck with a light cut. A bead of blood welled up from within. The people around were still trying to talk Kieran down from acting rashly. Just then, a nimble figure closed in on Mina, swiftly pinning her hands behind her back and restraining her on the spot. Mina cried out, "It's another police officer." I let out a derisive laugh. Kieran realized the officers had surrounded him. I could hear Kieran's ragged breathing and knew he was agitated. "Stay back, all of you." The officer halted and raised his hands. "See, I'm unarmed." Kieran's hands trembled, his face ashen with fear. "Stay back, let Mina and me go." One of the cops yanked the captured Mina. Mina spat on the ground at that moment. She screamed at Kieran at the top of her lungs, "Forget about me. Kill her. Kill that bitch." The officer forced her head down and shoved her backward. Karen grew even more flustered at this moment. Andy noticed this and pressed him relentlessly. He calmly tried to reason with Karen. "Sir, don't act rashly. We can work this out. The investigation is ongoing. Any further bloodshed during this period would not work in your favor either. If everything checks out, we'll naturally let you go." Kieran wouldn't dare lay a finger on me, but he also doesn't dare release me as a hostage. He started negotiating with the police. "Mina did everything. I had nothing to do with it. Get me a car, and I'll let her go." The crowd erupted in an uproar. "Seriously, trying to wash your hands of it already? How shameless. Pinning everything on a girl. Enough talking. Just drop it." He's still holding hostages. The officer acknowledged each instruction. Karen swallowed hard, growing more animated with every word. It seemed that holding power over lives made him impervious to threats. "Oh. And get the cash ready for me." The greed in Karen's eyes was unmistakable. It was all about catching Karen off guard. I slowly slipped one hand into the bag. My anxiety eased when I felt something bottle-shaped. Andy moved closer, now just a few meters away from Karen. Karen snapped back to reality and frantically raised the hand holding the knife toward him. Andy's gaze was intensely intimidating, making him flinch and pull his hand back slightly in that split second. Andy moved with lightning speed, lunging forward. I grabbed Karen's knife-wielding hand and twisted it aside. Karen cried out in pain. The knife clattered to the ground. Seizing the opportunity, I sank my teeth into the hand Karen had pressed against my chest. He cried out in pain again, letting go from the agony, ignoring the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. I swiftly pulled out the pepper spray I always kept in my bag. I sprayed it directly at him. He let out a sharp cry, cursing at me repeatedly. "Adira, you damn bitch, I should have killed you." Blinded and choking from the pepper spray, Karen stumbled toward me, flailing wildly. He looked like he was about to murder me. I sprayed him with pepper spray again, and he covered his face, stumbling backward. 9. At the same moment, the officer stepped in front of me to shield me. Other officers rushed forward to restrain Karen. In an instant, the situation turned around. This whole farce was finally coming to an end. The onlookers all dispersed one after another. They were still marveling, saying, "I can't believe such people exist in this world. What an eye-opener." I looked at the headlines on my phone. From the very beginning, when Mina and Karen framed me, to when Karen took me hostage and was eventually subdued, it instantly went viral. The comments section was buzzing with heated discussions. "Oh my God, what terrible luck to run into a man like this, and that girl is nothing but trouble. Framing her own sister, causing her mother's death, and still putting on an act. What a scheming bitch. This poor woman got utterly betrayed. If her own family hadn't testified for her, the false accusations might have succeeded. The consequences don't bear thinking about. I thought this family treated Mina so well. How could things turn out like this? No wonder, not blood-related, just rotten to the core from the start, born wicked, plain and simple. What else can you expect?" The police handcuffed Karen. The officers supported me, shielding me firmly behind them. Mom and Dad rushed over and wrapped me in a tight embrace. "Adira, thank goodness you're safe." "Mom, I'm fine. Don't worry." I hugged my mom to comfort her. Dad watched the police car with a grim expression. I knew exactly how heartbroken they must have felt at that moment. Dad sighed. "Fine, you made your bed, now lie in it. Our family has no place for someone like this." I watched as the police methodically secured the scene and escorted both Karen and Mina to the patrol car. Karen had become completely dazed and docilely got into the police vehicle, but Mina didn't seem willing to give up. She clung desperately to the car door, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Drop dead, you bitch. Everything would be better if you were gone. It'll all be mine." Her twisted expression was so vivid that I could hardly remember how she used to sweetly call me sister, once so endearing, now utterly terrifying, not a shred of sisterly affection for me. I should have seen it coming. In the end, the police forced her head down and shoved her into the squad car. The look she gave me through the window felt like she wanted to skin me alive and eat me, after I snapped out of it. I followed the police to the station with mixed emotions to give my statement. When I finished giving my statement, I saw doctors in white coats walking inside and then carrying out a body covered with a white sheet. I asked around and found out that the body was actually Karen's. To everyone's surprise, Karen, who was expected to plead guilty, suddenly fought back as the officer removed his handcuffs. He grabbed a ballpoint pen from the table and thrust it toward the officer's carotid artery. In a flash, a bullet struck him. The pen, mere centimeters from the officer, clattered to the ground. His desperate struggle came to nothing in the end. Karen's eyes widened, bloodshot veins covering the whites. As he collapsed stiffly, vomiting blood, Mina, standing nearby, let out a piercing shriek at the sight before fainting. Despite emergency efforts, Karen was pronounced dead at the scene, as an accomplice to premeditated murder and hostage-taking, among other charges. Mina will have plenty of time to enjoy herself behind bars. The moment I stepped out of the police station, the once overcast sky cleared up, becoming bright and sunny. Feeling the warmth of the sun on my face, I felt a sudden sense of relief. I saw my mom and dad waiting for me by the roadside. They waved at me, I smiled, and suddenly everything became clear. The haze that had been weighing on my heart finally lifted. I no longer dwell on the hurt that Mina and Kieran caused me. They will get there just deserts, while I can live out my life in happiness. Story 2. In the first year of the apocalypse, David gradually grew tired of me and developed feelings for his sister-in-arms, my own sister. Even the other members of our team seemed to tacitly agree that those two were a perfect match. Before the apocalypse, I was his little ray of sunshine, his redemption. After the apocalypse, I became a burden that dragged down his team. Later, during a battle, David and my sister confirmed their feelings for each other, which led to me being bullied by our team. David even went so far as to push me towards other men to protect his beloved. It wasn't until I truly fell in love with someone else that he remembered the girl who, upon first meeting, had brought him home wounded. I crouched among ordinary people in the dark of night, quickly bowing my head to stealthily bite off a piece of the remaining cookie, holding it in my mouth without making much noise. As my stomach churned with hunger, the cookie was somewhat moldy, secretly stashed away during today's scavenging. It was the second year of the apocalypse, and we still hadn't reached the northern base. Our team had expanded from 5 to 12 members, including 7 with special abilities and 5 ordinary people like myself. Not far away, a group with a lantern discussed their route while studying a map, their voices carrying softly through the air. "S city has fallen. We'll have to go around through the mountains to reach the town on the other side. There are fewer zombies in those areas." "Scarlet, what do you think?" a somewhat cold female voice responded. "Yeah, that's fine." Hearing this, I looked up to see a man with messy hair holding the lantern, his gaze unexpectedly tender. "We should reach the northern base in about a month. I've heard that order is gradually being restored there." David and I hadn't spoken in a long time, even though he was my boyfriend. As I ate the last bit of the cookie, my eyes rested on a woman dressed in a cold, leather outfit. "At least it's just another month. Once we get to the northern base, things will be better. I've heard that even ordinary people can survive well there. By then, we could break up." Subconsciously, I touched the zombie core hidden in my pocket. It was said that swallowing a pure zombie core could awaken abilities in ordinary people. With awakened abilities, one could survive better in the apocalypse. However, the core I held was impure, just a low-grade one. While it could enhance an ability holder's powers, it would be lethal for ordinary people like me. Still, holding it gave me a small glimmer of hope. While the ability holders cleared zombies outside, we ordinary people searched a small store for any remaining supplies. Carrying a backpack almost half my height, I climbed through a small window into a store that seemed to have been looted already, leaving only some daily necessities and dried peanuts. I stuffed everything into my pack, and spotting a box of coconut candies under a table, I quickly shoved them into my sleeve. Outside it was midsummer, and the heavy cotton clothes wrapped around my thin body. I slowed my breathing to lower my presence, handing over the found items to Dominic, a man in our team. Dominic's eyes on me carried a hint of malice, a look I had grown all too familiar with over time. He took my pack, his slimy touch brushing against my hand as he smirked. "Zoe dresses so warmly, yet her hands are still so cold." I pulled my hand away and quickly ran to stand behind David, reaching out to hold his arm. David frowned as he looked at me, and I tilted my head back, bending my eyes playfully as if I hadn't noticed his tense posture. Scarlet glanced at us, her eyes briefly mocking as she noticed our intertwined arms. "Before the apocalypse, rely on your parents. After the apocalypse, depend on a man." I pursed my lips, offering no rebuttal. Seemingly bored by the lack of a response, she turned, her ponytail tracing an arc in the air. As Scarlet headed towards the car, David turned to me with a disapproving look. "Zoe, you know seeing you always upsets your sister. Why do you keep showing up in front of her?" Impatience was nearly spilling out of his eyes. I stared at him, biting my lip, a mix of confusion and helplessness on my face. "I'm sorry, but I was scared. Dominic just touched me." David's expression turned awkward, but he didn't pull his hand away. I had been with David since high school. I found him in a dark, damp alley, emaciated to the point where his ribs were visible, covered in wounds. Passed out in the filthy water, moved by his plight, I rescued him, scrimping and saving to treat his injuries and even sharing my own meals when he had no money for food. Back then, David was dealing with the death of his mother and an alcoholic father who would beat him when drunk. His schooling continued only because his good grades earned him a fee waiver. Over time, the brooding, aloof boy was healed by my efforts, coming to care for me alone. It was natural for us to end up together. He even gave up a guaranteed university placement to attend the same college as me for my sake. However, on our wedding day, a zombie outbreak erupted, one of the guests mutated and killed another, throwing the venue into chaos. Later, in an effort to save me, my parents locked me and my sister behind an iron door, using their bodies to block the zombies and buy us a chance to escape. Before our eyes, they turned into mindless zombies. Scarlett, my sister who is 3 years older, has disliked me since we were children. I was frail and sickly from a young age, struggling with illnesses that other children easily shrugged off. Until I was 13, I was almost always medicated, watching from inside while others played. Even when I got healthier, my parents, overprotective and doting, never harshly scolded me, which only fueled Scarlett's belief that they favored me. Her resentment spiked during her teenage years, leading to frequent arguments. She moved far away for college, only returning when I was about to get married. That day, her animosity towards me peaked. She grabbed my arm, demanding, "Why couldn't it have been you who died? Why weren't you the one to die? If it hadn't been for your wedding, none of this would have happened, and our parents wouldn't be dead. You're a curse. They gave all their love to you, even asking me to take care of you in their final moments. Why shouldn't it be you who died?" Zoe, in our squad. Scarlett and David were the first to manifest supernatural abilities. Those with powers are physically stronger and more resilient than ordinary people. Scarlett developed ice powers, while David's were fire-based. The other two members, David's college roommates, manifested water and wood powers respectively. As the apocalypse approached, it brought with it earthquakes and floods that ravaged human dwellings, polluting nearly all water sources and plunging the city into darkness. Later, we heard that there was a survivors' base up north, and our group set off on the journey there. At first, everyone was very friendly to me, until they realized that I had not developed any special abilities. Resentment began to grow within the group. If it hadn't been for the fact that I was David's girlfriend and Scarlett's sister, they wouldn't dare say anything, but their occasional impatience and disdain revealed their contempt. They seemed to forget that when their own abilities had not awakened, and thousands of zombies were destroying buildings, I was the one who crawled into the collapsed ruins to find food. When their abilities failed to improve, I was the one who first discovered that some zombies had crystalline cores in their heads. Over the year, I watched as David's heart gradually leaned more towards Scarlett, one with ice powers and the other with fire. They made an efficient team when fighting zombies, becoming the most in-sync warriors in our group. Perhaps he felt a kindred spirit with Scarlett, and as he learned more about her past, compared to my once cheerful and kind nature, he grew more sympathetic towards her independence and strength. During times of food shortage, I even overheard them discussing the possibility of leaving me behind. They were comrades in arms, while I was just a burden. Even ordinary people without special abilities could fend off zombies when working together. Only I, weak and frail, was useless beyond using my small stature to scavenge for food. Later, Dominic and his group joined us. Dominic had strength-based abilities, and one of his companions had the rare healing powers. When did I realize that he no longer liked me? Perhaps it was when he remained silent as others mocked me, or maybe it was that day when I got into the vehicle, and my usual seat was taken up by a large bag filled with various foods I had found. David looked at me, hesitation in his eyes. "This vehicle is for those with special abilities, Zoe. I'm the team leader, and I can't show you special treatment just because you're my girlfriend. Do you understand?" I nodded and went to sit in the minivan with the other ordinary people. In that van, like me, ordinary people had to give any food they found to those with abilities, receiving only a little water and food each day just to sustain life. Everyone sat in silence, eyes closed, conserving their energy. And then everyone knew that David and Zoe weren't anything special to me. If it weren't for the fact that I was David's girlfriend, that man named Dominic would have already made his move. And such blatant covetous glances. David seemed oblivious. He only said, "You're thinking too much, David. We're almost at the northern base," I said softly, my eyes downcast. He paused, as if he didn't understand what I meant. I sighed softly within my heart. Once we reached the northern base, no one would have to suffer any longer, too. After regrouping for a day, the team proceeded to hike into the mountains. S-City had long been a zombie city, so we planned to enter from a small town at the foot of the mountain. I followed along in the group. This area used to be a scenic tourist spot and later showed signs of human activity, so the mountain paths were not too rugged. The mountain forest was somewhat quiet. Suddenly, an ordinary person collapsed behind me. Unable to endure the prolonged hunger and trek, everyone seemed to ignore him and kept moving forward. I caught up, the weight of my backpack a constant reminder. Our food supply was running low as I passed by him, accidentally dropping 2 coconut candies from my sleeve. When I finally looked up, I met Scarlett's icy stare. "I think it's time someone else carried the backpack." Ignoring her, I continued walking. "But someone grabbed the strap of my bag," I said. "Let someone else carry it." Are you deaf? Those ahead of us stopped, and all eyes turned to Scarlet and me. Suddenly, Scarlet grabbed my hand and yanked up the sleeve of my cotton jacket, causing a pack of coconut candies and 2 compressed biscuits to fall out, because someone can't keep their hands to themselves. Hiding food. In a world like this, the virtuous die first. You're lucky to have survived this long. Her tone was mocking, her gaze full of disdain as she picked up the biscuits from the ground and tossed them to a bystander. Eat up and keep up. After that, she glared at me fiercely. Don't let me find anything missing from the pack again. I understand, I murmured quietly, not showing any embarrassment from being caught hiding food. In these desperate times, most resources had been scavenged. The majority of our group's food came from dangerous, narrow crevices I had found, always risking zombie attacks and unstable structures. Since I was the one who found most of our food and didn't possess any special abilities, I didn't feel I owed them anything. They gave so little to the ordinary people. What I hid was rightfully mine, but I kept quiet. The more you argue, the more ungrateful you appear. Our group stopped at a mountain lodge as darkness fell. It seemed like others had been here before, and all useful items had been taken. I set down my pack, and it was clear they didn't plan to share any food with the common folk tonight. I searched each room on the second floor for any overlooked food, but found nothing. Unnoticed, I quickly ate the last piece of coconut candy hidden in my shirt and went downstairs to sleep in a corner. Nearby, a group seemed to be discussing something before finally heading out. When they returned in the middle of the night, David was carrying Scarlet, who looked pale and anxious, her shoulder soaked with blood showing the raw flesh beneath. If not treated soon, she would turn into a mindless zombie. A tense argument broke out between 2 factions, hiding behind the crowd. I pieced together the story. Scarlet had sensed a high-level zombie in the mountains, while others' abilities were advancing. Hers had stalled for a long time, and her competitive nature couldn't accept this stagnation. After discovering the high-level zombie, she was determined to obtain its crystal core. The quest had injured many, and Scarlet was clearly the most severely wounded. Dominic and his allies, including an old man named Zhao with healing abilities and another with electric powers, faced off against us. David, his eyes red, gathered flames in his palm, ready to strike at any moment, save Scarlet, and besides this 4th-tier crystal. You can have anything you want, anything I want. Dominic's gaze shifted to me with ill intent, and he sneered. I want you to break up with Zoe. David turned around, looking beyond the crowd. My lips tightened and my face turned a shade paler. Losing the identity as David's superpowered girlfriend and just being an ordinary person without abilities, I could only imagine the grim possibilities that awaited. Dominic's voice continued. It's clear to everyone that you are Zoe's boyfriend but also fancy Scarlet. Among the few women in the team, you've got the 2 most beautiful ones. Isn't that a bit much? Let Zoe go. I promise I'll treat her well. After all, as an ordinary person without powers, she'd be lucky to be with me. They laughed in disgust, not caring about my feelings, easily deciding my future. David turned around, and I instinctively grabbed his hand, my eyes brimming with tears. No, David. I don't want us to break up. We were just a month away from reaching the northern base. Only a month left. David looked down at me, gently set someone down, and took my hand, leading me away. David, you promised you wouldn't leave me behind. I buried myself in his arms, my tears dampening my lashes. David, please don't break up with me. I pleaded softly. Breaking up would send a dangerous signal to others. I would be nothing but a piece of meat on the chopping board. Not just for Dominic but for the other superpowered members of the team. With the collapse of order and the apocalypse, human wickedness escalated. I had seen the fate of other ordinary men and women who hadn't awakened their abilities. The weak were not seen as their own kind, but merely as resources to be traded. I didn't want to end up like that. Not when we were just a month away. Only 1 month left. Zoe. I'm sorry. David's expression was cold and indifferent as he looked into my eyes without a trace of pity. Zoe, your sister has always had a hard life, overlooked since she was young, and strong-willed. I always thought I only felt camaraderie towards her, but today, seeing her life in danger, I can't lie to myself anymore. I've fallen for her. What do you think will happen to me if we break up? He fell silent, then suddenly said, Dominic is a 4th-tier power user, as strong as me. He would be a good choice for you. He analyzed the situation with a calm that lacked any of the warmth he once had. The man who had once shielded me from zombies, risking his own life, now seemed like a demon in my eyes. Besides, Zoe, she's your sister. When did you become so selfish? Do you know when I started to like your sister? She might seem indifferent to ordinary people, but she's always the first to face the zombies. And you? You only think of yourself when your sister's life is at stake. He even looked somewhat scornful as he spoke. Scarlet, tough on the outside but soft on the inside, always harsh to others but never to us. We were sisters, yet she despised me deeply. As children, a few gentle words would have eased the tension with our parents, yet she always chose the sharpest words to confront them. She insisted on going to a far-off university, causing our parents so much worry they turned gray. And despite the high expenses there, they sent her a substantial amount of money every month, even went so far as to sell the house for a smaller one. Nobody ever owed her anything. Along the way, due to David and Scarlett's subtle disapproval of me, I was isolated by everyone. Despite there being many ordinary people in the group, I was the only one who was constantly ridiculed, wiping away my tears. I looked at the man in front of me, knowing it was too late to change anything, and turned to walk outside where a faint light on the horizon revealed a mountain path. Behind me, David's voice eerily echoed, "There are still some zombies in the mountains. We've been here so long. They must have caught scent of living humans by now. They should be nearby, so if you think you can safely make it down the mountain, go ahead by yourself." "Zoe, how did you become so selfish?" I turned to look at him. He seemed sure I wouldn't dare go alone. David's gaze even carried a hint of disappointment mixed with relief, as if he was relieved to have finally seen through the person before him. To ensure safety, everyone stayed together. I sat with the ordinary people, huddled in a corner and fell asleep in an uncomfortable position, but I had grown used to it. An hour later, as everyone rested, the light from outside faintly illuminated the room. Suddenly, a pair of hands pulled me up, causing me to scream. But my mouth was quickly covered. The room fell silent as I struggled, kicking over the living room furniture. I saw David's sofa shift slightly as if disturbed, then it returned to stillness. The man's stench was overpowering as his hands, strong as steel, gripped my waist and dragged me into a room. Everyone pretended to be silent. Clenching my teeth, I pulled out a knife from my pocket and cut the palm of my hand. When everyone else was awakening their powers, even a slight scratch on my skin would attract countless zombies, born frail and faced with an apocalypse. Even the awakening of my powers seemed a cruel joke intent on taking my life. I closed my eyes, thinking if nobody wanted me alive, then let them all die. The hand covering my mouth and nose loosened, and as it moved to tear at my clothes, the knife blade buried half into my palm, blood dripping profusely and staining the sheets red. Outside, zombies, their faces pale as broken mirrors, burst in, shattering the quiet of the room. Dominic scrambled to his feet, and I lay limp on the bed, my jacket torn open to reveal the short sleeve underneath. David entered the room, almost unable to meet my eyes. After dealing with the zombies, Dominic pried open a zombie's head, found no crystal core, spat in disgust, and left the room. David looked back at me, paused for a long time, then shut the door. I looked at the fallen zombies, walked over, slowly extended my hand toward the rotting flesh, and then abruptly pulled back. I couldn't die. After enduring ridicule, mockery, and bullying since the apocalypse began, hadn't I endured it all just to stay alive? 3. The next day, the group continued forward, the mountain path growing rougher as we went. Apart from a few zombies in hiking gear, there were no other figures, leaning on a cane. My face pale from blood loss and sweat dampening my eyelashes, my head dizzy. But my hand was held by someone's clammy, limp hand. I lifted my eyes. At some point, Dominic appeared in front of me, his lecherous gaze fixed on my face. "Isn't Zoe too hot wearing all those layers every day?" I withdrew my hand in disgust, but he persisted. "Take a couple layers off. Look, you're sweating." As he spoke, he blocked my path and reached for my collar, while everyone else tactfully distanced themselves from me. I raised my hand and slapped away the disgusting hand in front of me. Dominic glared at me furiously and grabbed my hair, pulling me backward. "You ungrateful bitch." He was incredibly strong. I was slammed against a nearby pine, feeling as if all my internal organs had been shattered. I curled up on the ground, writhing in pain. "Dominic, don't go too far," David said, his voice tinged with anger. Dominic, with a sneer, replied, "Captain David, I'm just concerned about Zoe overheating. She fell on her own. Don't blame me." After a moment to catch my breath, a shadow fell over me and a pack of compressed biscuits landed in front of me. "We should reach the foothills by today. Eat this." Scarlett's voice came from above me. I looked up to meet her cold, mocking eyes. "Your parents were worried about you before they died. I'll save your life as a way to repay them. Once we reach the northern base, you and I are done." She stood above me, her gesture almost like an act of charity. I picked up the compressed biscuits from the ground, tore open the package, and took a small bite. As we crossed one mountain after another, the hunger among us grew, slowing our pace even more, yet the mountain road seemed endless. As dusk fell, we neared the foothills and saw a small village. The village was surrounded by mountains, with most houses built from yellow mud. We decided to rest there for the night and continue to the nearby town the next day. David's flashlight was growing dim, barely illuminating the path under our feet. Seeing the lights in the village, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The village seemed backward. There was a stream at the foothills, likely used for hydroelectric power, providing electricity, but the village was very quiet, with no people or zombies in sight. Instinctively, we headed towards a lit house. The door of the house was open, lights on, and several freshly bled chickens lay on the table, exciting everyone at the sight. A few people processed the chickens, and the aroma of cooked chicken wafted through the air. The house showed signs of habitation, which made me feel uneasy. I sat on a small wooden chair, nibbling on the remaining compressed biscuits. As they finished dividing up the meat, one of them asked me, "Zoe, do you want some?" I shook my head and hesitantly said, "It seems like someone lives here. Is it really okay for us to do this?" Whoever lives here must be one of the village's original inhabitants. There probably aren't many of them. If they are sensible, we'll take them with us. If not, no one will care if they end up dead. Dominic responded, "It's the apocalypse now, not the civilized society from a year ago. Zoe, you're still too naive." Scarlett gave me her usual mocking look, and seeing that, I fell silent. After eating his fill, Dominic approached me. "Zoe, why are you sitting here all alone? Come and have some." I instinctively got up and ran outside, only to crash into a wall of people. A pair of large hands gripped my waist. Startled, I looked up to find myself staring into the slightly puzzled eyes of a dark-skinned man. The man was very tall, nearly 2 meters, and his tight black tank top accentuated his muscular arms. His wild eyes swept over the crowd with disdain. I quickly stepped back from his embrace and ran towards David. For some reason, this dark-skinned man seemed dangerous to me. He glanced around the room, noticed the chicken feathers scattered on the floor, and frowned deeply before stepping inside, causing everyone to instinctively take a step back. "Hello, we're headed to the northern base and are just staying here temporarily." David cautiously approached to negotiate, but the man kept staring at the chickens on the ground. Suddenly, he grinned at David, holding up 3 fingers. "He's eaten 3 chickens. Deal with it as you see fit." Everyone seemed to understand his message. Exchanging glances, I bit my lip and quietly hid behind the crowd. "If you've eaten your chickens, then that's that. If you dare, kill me," said an Earth Element ability user from our group, stepping forward. "David, he's just one man. What are you afraid of?" But in the next second, the man's neck twisted to the side, blood bursting from his eyes as he fell, revealing the dark-skinned man's slightly smiling face with a few drops of blood on it, hinting at a bloodthirsty nature. The atmosphere instantly tensed up, and no one dared to move as no one had seen the man's quick action clearly. The man put down one of his 3 fingers, indicating, "I've eaten 3 of your chickens, so 3 of you must stay." I bit my lip, holding back a scream rising in my throat. The man in front might also be an ability user. We couldn't be sure of his powers. It might be speed or strength, but he seemed very powerful either way. "I'm sorry, we shouldn't have intruded into your territory. Consider it an exchange of food for passage," David said, throwing down a black bag that revealed a few compressed biscuits and half a pack of instant noodles. "If we really fought, it wouldn't end well for you either. Let us go, and we'll act like nothing happened." The man pondered for a moment, then lowered 2 fingers and stepped aside, still looking displeased. I followed closely behind David, feeling an inescapable gaze on me and not daring to look up. Suddenly, David stopped walking, and in an instant, he and Scarlett attacked the dark-skinned man with their abilities. Scarlett's ability turned into a thin layer of ice on the man, and David's fire ability followed, engulfing the man in a blaze. Usually, the ice ability that immobilized zombies lost its effect this time. With a slight movement, the man shattered the ice, and shards flew towards him. The ability users in our group reacted, but the dark-skinned man was not at a disadvantage. He easily snapped another person's neck. I hid behind the sofa, fearful of being caught in the middle. None of them were a match for the man. In less than 5 minutes, the scene was soaked in blood, bodies grotesquely twisted. Most of the ordinary people in our group were affected, leaving only a few ability users. I stayed behind the sofa, biting my arm to avoid making any noise. Only the redness in her eyes betrayed her fear. The man grasped Scarlett's neck with his fingers but did not immediately squeeze. He quietly watched as the person beneath his hand grew weaker. "Don't hurt her," David said, his eyes reddening. "We can still talk about this. I can give you anything you want," I said, peeking out quietly, only to find the man's gaze sharply locked onto me. The dark-skinned man stretched out his hand and pointed at me, curling his finger in a beckoning gesture. "Do you mean her?" David's expression darkened, and he glanced at me involuntarily. My face was pale as I looked back at David. "I didn't eat his chicken. I am my own person, not your property. You can't decide what happens to me." Panic filled my mind. David was no longer the David I knew. From any perspective, it seemed I was the one to be forsaken. The room was filled with blood and severed limbs, all the work of the man in black. If I stayed, who knew what would happen? David closed his eyes. Anyone but her. The dark-skinned man frowned, seemingly unable to speak, only expressing his dissatisfaction forcefully with his fingers. Scarlett's breathing grew fainter, her face turning bright red as she twisted in pain. Suddenly, David walked over and grabbed my wrist with great force, as if he had made a resolute decision. "David, You can't treat me like this. Tears blurred my vision, and all I could see was his tightly pursed lips, the taut string in his mind snapping. I bit down on David's wrist and kicked him. His body stiffened, but he did not let go. David, you should have died in that alley. No wonder no one likes you. I shouldn't have befriended a freak like you. He might only covet your beauty, not your life. Zoe, I will come and save you. Do you believe me? David said, looking down at me with a trace of mercy in his eyes. His grip was so strong it felt like it could crush my wrist. He flung me away, and as the stench of blood hit me, the dark-skinned man's large hand landed on my waist. David and his group supported each other as they left. I ran after them, but a large hand tightly encircled my waist. The door shut in front of me, and then the man's hand landed on my neck, slowly tightening. Tears instantly streamed down my face. I didn't eat your chicken. I'm not with them. I didn't try to steal your crystal. Can you please let me go? In this room filled with severed limbs, with half of the man's face covered in blood like a demon, I felt a surge of hatred. I hated David, Scarlett, and the man before me. We were so close to the northern base, so close to living like normal people again. The man had no intention of letting me go. He carried me to the next room, a clay house with only a bamboo bed, seemingly annoyed by the cotton jacket. He tore open my clothes, including the cotton t-shirt underneath, revealing a body that seemed to be all bones. He stared intently at my body, his gaze inching over my skin, yet he remained motionless for a long time. Carefully, I pulled the cotton jacket back over me, suppressing my fear, and quickly kissed the corner of his lips. I'm not ready yet. Can we do this later? A fleeting look of confusion crossed his eyes as he met my gaze. The lecherous man in front of me seemed somewhat reasonable. Yet given his ruthless demeanor, I feared he might snap my neck in displeasure. Is that okay? I asked deliberately in a pinched voice. He suddenly leaned in close, his sharp teeth bared. I instinctively swung my hand, striking his cheek with a crisp smack. I'm sorry. My face turned pale instantly, realizing that provoking him was the most irrational thing to do at that moment. He grabbed my wrist, reopening a wound on my palm from a few days ago, and blood began to flow. The next second, a warm softness touched the palm of my hand, sending shivers down my spine as he licked the wound. His moist, sticky tongue swept across my palm. I felt as if I was being choked, only able to watch in terror what was unfolding before me. His eyes, seemingly glowing with a blood-like light, were fixed intently on my face, his lips curling into a slight, pleased smile. Had I encountered a psychopath? In the end, the man didn't do anything. He left the room. I followed, only to find the door locked behind me. The windows were sealed, with only a small vent open. The zipper of my clothes was broken. I found some old floral cotton clothes in the room and changed into them, lying down on the bamboo bed covered with bedding. Exhaustion from the past few days overcame me, and I drifted into a fitful sleep. When I woke up, the stench of blood hit me, opening my eyes. I saw a bloody arm in front of me and screamed. The man, holding the arm, looked at me, his brow furrowed in apparent displeasure. Then he turned and left. I hastily followed him to the room from yesterday. He started to dismember the body on the floor, and I realized what he intended to do. My stomach churned, and I crouched down, retching bitterly. He walked towards me, and I watched in terror as he slowly approached. He pointed to the dismembered torso on the floor. Are you asking me to choose? He nodded. My retching intensified. As he drew closer, I turned and tried to run, but the door slammed shut. I turned back, leaning against the door, tears streaming down my face. Don't do this. The room still reeked of blood. He seemed displeased, picked me up, and carried me back to the room from yesterday, locking the door again before heading to the next room. What was he doing? Cannibalism. This realization flashed through my mind. I couldn't stop retching. What about the people in the village? Had he eaten them too? When the door opened again, he had changed his clothes, his shirt removed to reveal a muscular chest. I kept backing away until I could no longer move. It seems everyone was wrong yesterday. He wasn't about speed or strength but psychic powers, which explains why so many superhumans couldn't defeat him last night. He found the bag from last night and shoved a packet of instant noodles, still in its plastic wrapper, towards my mouth, uttering his first words, "Eat." Seeing that I didn't move, he continued to push the food towards my mouth. I took it, tore open the packaging, and ate in small bites. He watched me until I finished, a look of pleasure appearing on his face. He rummaged through his backpack, and I watched his movements, sensing something odd about him. But it seemed he had no intention of harming me. The instant noodles were a bit dry, so I pointed at the bottled water in his hand and carefully asked, "Can I have that?" He handed me the water and patiently watched as I finished an entire pack of noodles before giving me some compressed biscuits he had opened. Only after I had eaten most of the food in his bag did I gesture that I couldn't eat anymore, and he finally stopped. But the next second, he violently tore at my clothes. My skin glowing pale as jade under the dim light, he stared intently at my slightly swollen belly, his Adam's apple bobbing. I covered myself with my hands, holding back tears, feeling both humiliated and ashamed. I leaned in and kissed his cheek. "Thank you for the food, but could you wait a bit longer? I'm a bit embarrassed." He turned to look at me, his thoughts unreadable, and eventually got up and left. I breathed a slight sigh of relief. I guessed he might be a native of the village. Perhaps ill, which could explain his unusual behavior, although lecherous, combined with a lack of education. Perhaps no one had taught him better. Thinking this, I relaxed and, fixing my clothes, followed him out. In the neighboring room lay several bodies. I checked them. Nothing was amiss, reassuring me that he didn't eat people. The man was dealing with a chicken from somewhere. Seeing me come out, he hid it behind his back, his gaze wary. "It's mine." I hurriedly waved my hands. Seeing that he seemed about to eat it raw, I quickly stopped him. "You can't eat it raw. It's bad for your health." I increasingly felt that he might not know how to cook, so I approached and offered, "I can cook it for you." He understood. The kitchen still had some unburned firewood and spices, some only slightly expired, but in these end times, such things were trivial. He watched me intently, seemingly afraid I would steal some, pointing at the chicken and emphasizing, "Mine." Then he pointed at the bodies in the other room. "Yours." After the apocalypse, I rarely consumed meat, only encountering some cooked chicken legs when scavenging for supplies, which I would eat on the spot before reporting back. However, such opportunities became increasingly rare over time. He ate very neatly and quickly, and I watched him enviously, my mouth watering. A struggle flashed in his eyes, and he handed me a chicken leg. I smiled at him. "Thank you." He seemed to ponder the meaning of my words, his eating slowing down. This place appeared to be less polluted by the apocalypse, nestled deep in the mountains, powered by hydroelectricity from the stream. It had been a long time since anyone had maintained it, and only a few houses had electricity. He locked me in the room, and each day when he went out and came back, he would bring some wild chickens and rabbits. It seemed he finally understood that I wouldn't eat those bodies. Every time he went hunting, he would share a wild pheasant with me. However, as routine, after I had finished eating, he would tear open my clothes to take a glance. A month passed like this, apart from the limited area I could move around in and the lack of conversation. Sometimes I would even become delusional, feeling like this wasn't the apocalypse. Lately, the man had become noticeably more anxious, and the game he brought back was diminishing. His gaze upon me grew more intense, instilling a sense of panic in me, and I couldn't help but recall the image of him holding his bloody arm to my lips a month ago. Indeed, he hadn't received a normal education and seemed to lean more towards bestial instincts. When hungry, he would search for food, but if all the food within hundreds of miles had been consumed, who would be next, especially since he didn't seem to mind eating raw meat every time before he returned. I could see the cunning in his eyes that he thought he hid so well, a look of having eaten his fill outside. This thought sent shivers down my spine. The door was locked, and he had left again. It seemed to be sealed with his special ability, making it impossible to open. The house had only sealed windows, but one of the wooden bars was nearly sawed through. I climbed up, squeezed through the narrow vent, and headed out of the village with a black bag on my back. There were no vehicles in the village, just a single road leading out. At that moment, the roadside was overgrown with weeds. I kept moving forward, not daring to stop. However, as night fell, I still hadn't left the village. The village roads became increasingly intricate, and the footprints of those who had passed before were covered by grass. Logically, there should be a small town nearby. Suddenly, rustling sounds came from behind me. Instinctively, I gripped the machete in my hand and turned around. In the dark night, a pair of blood-red eyes stared at me. Immediately, my legs felt as if they were pinned down, and my breathing seemed strangled by an almost 2-meter-tall wolf. I turned decisively, running without choosing my path, driven only by the thought of escape. A tremendous force knocked me down, and stones tore through my clothes, drawing blood. The wild wolf roared, its massive paw resting on my back. My machete lay not far away. Desperation flickered in my eyes, but the pain didn't come. The wild wolf roared in anger. As I turned back, I saw the man's crimson eyes and his throat emitting fierce roars, the crystal on his neck exceptionally bright. There was anger in his eyes, and a hint of hurt. He bared his sharp fangs and bit down on my neck, causing a slight sting. I bit my lip, not daring to move. I could even feel his teeth sinking into my skin, his breath spraying on my neck. In this post-apocalyptic world, such occurrences weren't unusual. Some places even had mutant plants, but this was my first encounter with an animal turning into a human. Tears streamed down my cheeks. All my previous confusions were resolved. All his abnormal behaviors were because he wasn't human, including his recent actions of feeding himself. It seemed he just wanted to fatten me up before devouring me. The next second, I felt a wet lick on my neck, tingling slightly. His eyes carried the anger of betrayal, even a trace of sadness. Finally, I spoke. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I'm apologizing. Perhaps it's because the sadness in his eyes affects me, or maybe because he's been the kindest to me since the apocalypse, even if his intentions aren't pure, or if he can't even really be considered a person. He took me back to the village, this time. He tied my hands to his wrist with a rope and started to refuse to communicate with me. Whenever I thought about being nothing more than a reserve meal for a wild wolf, despair rose within me. I began to refuse his food, and after several days, my complexion turned increasingly pale, as if I might die at any moment. Still, I dared not eat his offerings. The fastest-growing pigs are always slaughtered first. The game nearby seemed to be dwindling, and his demeanor grew increasingly anxious. I knew my time was probably coming soon. He began to cook food and forcefully feed it to me, but no matter what he fed me, I couldn't help but vomit it out. His threats were fierce, but seeing me continuously throw up the food, he seemed at a loss. At night, I closed my eyes, and my wrist, chafed and bleeding from the rope, was starting to fester. He untied the rope and gently licked my wounds. With my eyes closed, he hugged me from behind, his palm resting on my lower belly, warm and sticky. The next day, he untied the rope from my hands. I was stunned. The door was open, and a black backpack was placed at the doorway. He had his back to me, seemingly unwilling to look at me. "Aren't you going to eat me?" He didn't answer, but his ears twitched. Inside the black backpack were 2 bottles of mineral water, some winter jujubes, and packed cooked chicken meat. My nose tingled inexplicably, and it took me a long time to shoulder the bag and prepare to leave. Suddenly, I realized that, for some reason, he might not want to harm me. There was no movement from the man inside the house. I turned back and saw his somewhat lonely figure, suddenly feeling a pang of compassion. "Do you want to come with me?" I knew he could understand some human language, though more complex sentences required him to think for a while. "The food here is running out. We can't stay here forever. Do you have a name? Can I call you Little Wolf?" He didn't respond or turn around. I had my own considerations. Over the past month, he hadn't really hurt me. Besides, with so many zombies along the way, it would be difficult for me alone to reach the northern base safely. If I go alone, I might encounter other wild beasts or powerful zombies. If I die, you'll never see me again. He moved slightly, and the next second, he was right in front of me. The next day, he and I set out from the village. He seemed familiar with the area. The town was about 30 kilometers from the village, and it reeked of rotting zombies. The town had been mostly scavenged already, with little food left and only a few zombies scattered around. Holding a fire axe, I decapitated the zombies and searched house by house for supplies. The zombies in the town were mostly old, their movements and strength far inferior to those in other places. The man with the dark skin followed me, bare-chested. Through the small town, there were no usable vehicles, and it took a long time before I finally found a useful map. I was looking at the northern base, just near Linchi City. With a vehicle, it would take roughly 3 days to get there. However, without a vehicle or communication devices, I was clueless about what lay ahead. Squatting on the ground, I studied the map while Little Wolf came over and licked my cheek, which tickled. I swatted his head away lightly. I found some clean clothes for myself in town, and got some for Little Wolf too. The store didn't have much in his size. They were somewhat tight, and he seemed uncomfortable. The buttons I had fastened for him were soon undone, his chest exposed. After wandering around for a while, I finally found a tricycle in town. It still had some fuel in it, so I drove towards the county town following the map, picking up supplies along the way. Little Wolf, unwilling to sit in the back and with his nearly 2-meter-tall frame, squeezed uncomfortably into the seat at the front of the tricycle, we headed towards the northern base, encountering surprisingly smooth passage along the way. Little Wolf was strong, no amount of zombies could match him. Halfway there, we passed through a county town and scavenged for more supplies before continuing towards the northern base, stopping and starting. The journey unexpectedly took 2 months along the way. We encountered only a few high-level zombies, the rest were lower level, and the crystal cores we collected were of poor quality, which was disheartening. Although Little Wolf didn't speak human language, he gradually began to understand most of what I said and occasionally responded. As we neared the northern base, the climate grew colder. With a week left to the base, a heavy snowfall turned the ground to ice, and the tricycle's speed slowed significantly. I made a tent with supports at the back of the tricycle, filling it with soft bedding, but it still couldn't keep out the biting cold. Little Wolf also started acting strangely, becoming unusually irritable. At night, the temperature dropped sharply. He transformed into a wolf to keep warm. I slept next to him, curling up in the blanket, pressing my cold feet against his soft belly. In a daze, it felt as if someone was embracing me from behind, their hot breath on my neck. I opened my eyes to feel his sharp teeth lightly grazing the soft flesh of my nape. With his solid, burning chest against my back, I closed my eyes, not daring to make a sound. Little Wolf stealthily held me close, his warm lips brushing against my eyes, then my nose, and finally landing on my lips. His entire being radiated an intense heat against my back. For the next few days, it continued like this, unsure of how to face him. I pretended to be oblivious. A few days later, the tricycle was completely broken down, and we packed up to walk to the northern base. Seeing the journey was far from over, he found a backpack nearly as tall as a person and gestured for me to get inside. The backpack was large enough for me to sit in comfortably. He walked for a long time seemingly without tiring, and I lay on his shoulder without burden, chattering away. He was a quick learner and gradually began to understand what I said. When we get to the northern base, you have to listen to me. If there's anything, ask me first, understand? Little Wolf stopped in his tracks, sensitive to the directive to listen to me. He turned his head, his eyes filled with anticipation. Reluctantly, I stepped forward and kissed his cheek. Nowadays, the young wolf had gradually adopted the cunning ideas of humans, only willing to move forward if there was something in it for him. And the benefit he sought was nothing more than that first kiss we shared. When we were one stop away from the northern base, our provisions dwindled to half a backpack. After consuming the last of our food, I scavenged for supplies in a small town. We had just come off the highway, and the young wolf was visibly tired, so we decided to stay the night in the town. The town was thoroughly ravaged by zombies, and it seemed to have suffered a flood as well, with collapsed buildings everywhere. It took us a long time to find a house that was still somewhat intact. After the young wolf dealt with the zombies nearby, he burst through the door just as I was using the remaining hot water in the house to bathe. The water was icy cold, and I could only manage to wipe the dirt off my body. He was still holding the broken door handle, staring at me with his throat moving and his eyes fierce. I quickly grabbed a towel next to me and threw it at his face. He pulled off the towel, furrowing his brow, an indication of his displeasure. "Get out," I said. My face flushed as I wrapped my arms around myself. Seeing that he wasn't budging, I coaxed him softly, "Be good, listen." He understood the words, reluctantly moving a step, but the next second, the young wolf's eyes were peeking through the door crack at me. He had gone out, but not completely. Remembering the wolf's antics at night, I firmly refused his request to sleep with me. The young wolf, not being human, might not understand the significance of hugs and kisses, but I do. And now survival is all that matters. Once we reach the northern base, everything will get back on track. He looked at me with a clear divide in his expression, his eyes shifting, appearing somewhat pitiful. The cunning young wolf was gradually getting to know my habits. Aware that I couldn't refuse such a gaze, I pursed my lips, avoiding his somewhat pitiful look. But this time, the young wolf didn't listen to me. He forcefully took me back to the room and covered me with a blanket, holding me tightly through it. During the night, I felt a persistent pain in my lower abdomen, perhaps due to the cold bath I had taken earlier. It was uncomfortable and painful, and I tossed and turned, unable to fully awake, as if trapped in a nightmare filled with floods, earthquakes, collapsing buildings, and waves of zombies besieging the city. Then, I watched helplessly as I lost one important person after another. In the cold night, it seemed like a furry head was nuzzling under the blanket. I woke up startled, feeling hair brush against my thigh, sending shivers through me. I was somewhat confused until the touch became real, and I screamed, fully awake, instinctively kicking at the person in front of me. In the darkness, I could only see the eerie glow of his eyes. Tears streamed down my face as I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. "What are you doing? What on earth are you doing?" The crisp sound of the slap echoed, and I remained tense, unable to see his expression in the dark. I hugged myself, a sob escaping from my throat. After a long while, he pulled me into his arms, his fingers wiping the tears from my cheeks. "You're hurt? There's blood." I stiffened, reaching out and finding my hand damp. In the post-apocalyptic world, we barely had enough to eat each day, just enough to keep us alive. I hadn't had my period for a long time, but recently, we hadn't been worrying about supplies, thanks to the meat Little Wolf found daily. These days were some of the best we've had since the apocalypse began. I went to take care of things in the dark, and when I returned, the pain in my lower abdomen had intensified. Curling up, the man held me close, his palm warm against my belly, easing the pain slightly. "I'm sorry." Little Wolf didn't understand what was going on, and for some reason, I ended up hitting him. He didn't understand why. So I explained, "I did something that upset you." He leaned in close, and as I raised my hand to meet his, my lips met something soft and slightly cool. It seemed to be his lips. It felt like his lips were briefly touched by a tongue, and I quickly pulled back. "There's nothing to be upset about," he replied. A week later, at the northern base's gate, the northern base was large, its towering walls visible from afar, but its interior hidden from view. As we approached the entrance for those with abilities, I peeked from behind Little Wolf. The guard glanced at me and pointed to the long queue of ordinary people. Go wait in that line. I wrapped my arms around Little Wolf's neck, staring down the officer. But I need to stay with my brother. He only listens to me. In reality, Little Wolf didn't just listen to me. He chose to hear what he wanted from others. Anyone with ill intentions, he would literally tear apart their words, and sometimes I felt he even enjoyed it when others harbored bad intentions, giving him a legitimate reason to act out. The officer's gaze fell on Little Wolf. Taken aback by his fierce look, I patted Little Wolf's head. Don't be fierce, be polite. Seeing this, the officer didn't say anything more, recorded our abilities and levels, and had a staff member lead us to our accommodations. Because of Little Wolf's high-level abilities, we were assigned a nicely decorated small apartment, apart from housing. Everything inside uses crystal cores as currency. Ordinary people can work for those with abilities to earn crystal cores. There are set quotas for all types of jobs, and private trading is not allowed. Those with abilities can earn crystal stones by taking on tasks. Our guide, a young girl with a cheerful demeanor, explained, for example, I don't have abilities, but working as a receptionist, I can earn a first-level crystal stone today. The northern base had its own system. Everyone had a role to play, even ordinary people without abilities. I was somewhat dazed. This place was almost a last refuge in my most desperate moments. In the cafeteria, food was exchanged for crystal cores. A second-level crystal stone could buy a meat and a vegetable dish. I picked the vegetables from Little Wolf's bowl and shared some of my meat with him. Little Wolf, how about we take on a task today? Little Wolf looked at me, expression somewhat indifferent, since arriving here. He had been rather sullen. It seemed he didn't like this place, and I felt a twinge of guilt. Little Wolf wasn't human and seemed used to living alone. How could he enjoy human life? Meanwhile, the murky thoughts at the bottom of my heart seemed rather sordid, taking advantage of a seemingly fierce but actually simple and naive Little Wolf, allowing such distorted emotions to run free. Thinking this, I shoveled most of the remaining food on my plate into his bowl. Such pairings of superhumans and ordinary people had become quite commonplace. It was not unusual for powerful superhumans to have multiple partners. Whispers started circulating around us, and my gaze landed on the woman in the black leather jacket at the door. Her beautiful, sharp features and overall demeanor exuded a cool confidence. I don't know what Captain you sees in that pretty boy. Following the voice, I saw a young girl glaring angrily. Seeing me look over, she glared at me too. What are you staring at? You're just like that pretty boy. The Little Wolf's aura became intensely cold. If he were in his wolf form, his fur would surely be bristling. Don't be upset. I quickly soothed him with a kiss on his cheek. It's okay. I had heard of Captain you. The woman who single-handedly established the northern base after the apocalypse. I just hadn't realized she was so young. The Little Wolf and I headed to the task hall, where I looked over today's missions, my eyes stopping on one involving encircling a level 6 zombie. It was only here at the base that I learned that the higher the level of a zombie, the purer the crystal core in its head. A level 6 zombie was no big deal for the Little Wolf, but with so many other eager superhumans around, I turned my attention to another task involving several level 4 and level 5 zombies. I hadn't expected to run into David here. In addition to the former squad members, there were a few new faces. With the group totaling about 10 people, they had taken on the level 6 zombie mission and soon left the hall. Others were reluctant to team up with us, and one superhuman made sarcastic comments. Who brings a normal person on a mission? The Little Wolf and I took on a mission to eliminate level 4 zombies nearby, and we joined other superhumans in a bus, which was filled due to the number of zombies. Not far away, David leaned against the side of an SUV, a cigarette dangling from his lips. I instinctively looked around for Scarlet. A pair of hands covered my eyes and pulled me into an embrace, the Little Wolf's aura conveying clearly that he was unhappy. I assumed he was upset about the crowded bus, and I kissed his cheek discreetly to calm him. It's okay, once we become stronger, we can have our own car. A sharp gaze from behind made my scalp tingle. Fortunately, the bus started moving just then. Seeing David brought back all the humiliations and frustrations of the post-apocalyptic world, being ostracized, occasionally taken advantage of by Dominic, and being pushed forward to save Scarlet's life. If the Little Wolf weren't just a little wolf but a ruthless man, I could hardly imagine what I would have faced. I pursed my lips, a fierceness in my eyes that I wasn't even aware of. I looked up at the man in front of me, now dressed in the uniform of the base, a black leather jacket and pants, reportedly made of a material developed by the base leader that resisted zombie corrosion, exchanged for 3 level 5 crystal stones. When the bus stopped at a warehouse in the nearby city to prevent zombies from besieging it, the base's vehicles, being rare, were only used for missions. David and his team were not there, and the Little Wolf and I didn't team up with others, as no one wanted to team with a superhuman who brought along a normal person. I sat behind the Little Wolf in the car, his movements swift as he cleared the surrounding zombies. I would then come down and use a curved knife to extract the crystal cores from the zombies' brains. His methods of dealing with zombies were brutal, either twisting their necks or tearing them apart. I watched him enviously. If only I had superpowers too, then I could have my own small apartment. The base treats those with special abilities quite well. They each have their own accommodations, while ordinary people have to share rooms. High-ranking individuals with special abilities can even form their own squads. He gazed at me intently, his thoughts unreadable, then moved his face close to mine. I quickly leaned in for a kiss. Instantly, Wolf felt completely content. We had walked for a long time, having already exceeded today's objectives. We dealt with the zombies wandering in the supermarket, locked the doors, snacked on some wafers we brought along, and then started browsing the store again. The shelves were almost empty, only a few daily necessities remained. I swept everything left into my bag. Suddenly, I noticed a crack in one of the supermarket walls. It looked like the plaster had cracked from the outside. Curiously, I tapped on it and heard an echo. There was a door here. My eyes lit up. The door seemed thick and was designed to blend seamlessly with the wall, which is why it had remained undiscovered for so long. I searched around and found a metal strip to pry it open. This was all thanks to my year-long experience scavenging with the team. The scene behind the door took my breath away, a warehouse full of supplies, from food to everyday items. If only we could take all this with us. At my words, Wolf glanced at me and raised his hand. A large section of goods from the nearest shelf disappeared. My eyes sparkled with excitement, and I hugged him tightly, a bit envious. How can you awaken so many abilities? He shook his head and removed a necklace with a pure crystal from his neck, then lowered it over my head. No abilities. I paused, feeling the crystal touch me. It was like entering a void. I remembered how Wolf had caught wild chickens and rabbits some time back. Holding the crystal, I looked up at him. Somewhat bewildered, is this for me? He tilted his head and kissed my cheek. Even after leaving the supermarket, I still hadn't fully grasped that the crystal couldn't be consumed. Wolf had worn it simply because he thought it looked nice, yet it could absorb my blood, becoming a personal space just for me. My nose tingled, feeling a bit emotional. Did this mean I now had abilities? Zoe. David's voice pulled me back to reality. I looked up to find myself facing another squad of individuals with special abilities. There were about 7 or 8 of them. Scarlet wasn't among them. Dominic looked at me and then at Wolf beside me, acting all high and mighty before. And now you're just hanging out with a wild man from the mountains. David's expression darkened, and he glared at him. Shut up. David's mission was to eliminate a level 6 zombie here. Currently, the base mostly consisted of level 5 special ability holders. Whoever could obtain this level 6 crystal core could advance a level, and if a regular person got it, they might awaken their own abilities. David seemed to have something to say to me, but he opened his mouth and then fell silent again. Looking at the group, I raised my head to look at Wolf. He wasn't looking at me, his eyes downcast, lost in thought. Suddenly, the sound of slicing air came, and several ice blades flew through the air, cracking the ground open. Wolf grabbed my hand and hoisted me onto his shoulders. Hold on to me. As the dust settled and smoke billowed, a 2-meter-long zombie appeared. If not for its pale, lifeless eyes, it could be mistaken for a regular person, a level 6 zombie, and one that had regained consciousness. Little Wolf, let's go. Although I was somewhat covetous of the zombie's crystal nucleus, the risk of Little Wolf getting hurt weighed heavier in my heart, suppressing my greed. This time, Little Wolf didn't heed my warning. He quickly moved toward the zombie, prompting everyone to instinctively unleash their special abilities. Little Wolf looked troubled. The zombie, though slower, did not lose its ability to move like the others. Little Wolf possessed psychic powers, and perhaps because they were of the same level, his abilities seemed to have little effect on the level 6 zombie before us. The others quickly reacted, releasing their powers in unison. Time passed, and the surrounding buildings were completely destroyed, turning into ruins. David's team of ability users also suffered severe injuries. The zombie started to struggle, fixing its gaze on me. It seemed to have detected that Little Wolf's weakness was linked to me, and began directing all its attacks at me. Constrained, Little Wolf became anxious. One hand tried to protect me, while the other fended off the ice blades hurtling towards us. I dared not speak, fearing it would distract him, but the zombie relentlessly continued its assault. Little Wolf, angered, caught the ice blades with his hand, which sliced through his palm, staining it entirely with his blood. However, the zombie's attack was just a diversion, and soon after, it turned and fled. Little Wolf set me down, and a pale white barrier formed in front of me, his psychic energy. Wait for me, he said softly. Don't go, I replied, pained and saddened by the wounds covering his body. He turned back, pressing his lips to my cheek. Wait for me. Initially, I had brought him to the northern base, thinking his strong abilities would protect me and ensure our safe arrival. He was the kindest person to me in this post-apocalyptic world, and I didn't want him to get hurt. Don't go. He turned and chased after the zombie. Except for me and a few ability users who were either injured or unconscious, no one else was left. The remaining ability users pursued the fleeing zombie. Meanwhile, I crouched inside the safe house he had made for me, my heart pounding suddenly. 7. The setting sun cast its glow over the ruins, and snowflakes began to drift in the air, marking the last snow of this winter. The shimmering white barrier slowly faded, and a shadowy figure emerged before my eyes. He approached against the backdrop of the fading sun and falling snow, his face covered in blood, his black clothes torn beyond recognition, revealing deep wounds. A giant wolf tail swayed behind him. He came closer and opened his hand to show a transparent, pure crystal. An ability user on the ground groaned and woke up. It was an old acquaintance. He too noticed the wolf tail, and a look of horror crossed his face. I approached him slowly. "What did you see?" He kept backing away. Too weak from overusing his abilities, the humiliations he had once inflicted on others flitted through my mind. "He's a mutated animal. You're actually with a..." Dominic yelled, his eyes wide with terror as he caught sight of the curved blade in my hand. "What are you going to do?" Before he could finish speaking, the blade pierced his heart, warm blood splashing onto my face, meeting his eyes which remained wide open even in death. I turned back to Little Wolf. "Be good. Hide your tail." Decimating the level 6 zombie had cost the team most of its ability users, and Little Wolf had exhausted his powers. He could only barely maintain the appearance of being half human, half wolf. His handsome face was replaced by a wolf's head, making him look quite terrifying. I had told him not to go outside recently, and I went to the medical building myself to get his medicine. Fortunately, we had enough crystal nuclei, and with the ones we earned from our last mission, we could afford to buy all the medicine in the medical building if needed. But today, we encountered an unexpected visitor. David had also been seriously injured that time, and now he looked extremely pale. Holding the medicine, I stood to the side as he blocked my path. "Is this for that wolf?" I tightened my grip and pretended not to understand. "What are you talking about? I saw it the other day. He transformed into a wolf while killing that level 6 zombie. He is a mutant animal." "Are you serious?" I pursed my lips and my eyes suddenly filled with tears. "How could that be? He's clearly human. Besides, wasn't it you who pushed me towards him?" David pursed his lips. "I'm sorry, Zoe. I shouldn't have abandoned you. I tried to find you later, but there was no one there. I thought you were dead." His words sounded sincere, but I felt nothing inside. In the early days of the apocalypse, he indeed protected me, even putting himself in danger to save me. But he also left me to fend for myself time and again. "Is he forcing you? If so, I will definitely find a way to rescue you," David asked. I wiped away my tears, barely nodding. "But he is very powerful. No one in the base can match him, and he won't let me go." David's eyes darkened. "Is that level 6 crystal still there?" I nodded. "He has been unconscious these past few days. He hasn't had a chance to use it yet. Tomorrow, bring me along on your mission. I'll bring it to you." I looked up at him, my eyes filled with affection and love. "David, after 7 years together, you'll protect me, right?" David seemed to recall the past. "Zoe, if it weren't for the apocalypse, we might have been married by now. But it's not too late. That wedding a year ago, once we kill that wolf, I'll make it up to you." I wanted to ask him about Scarlet, but ultimately I didn't. I just watched as his figure disappeared from my view. I had already inquired about them on my way back. For some reason, Scarlet had parted ways with him and was now working in security at the base's research institute, but I had no intention of seeing her. The little wolf could now revert back to human form, but he still couldn't retract his ears and tail. He hugged me, muttering, "I don't like it here." The next day, David and I went to pick up a mission together. We deliberately separated from the crowd to meet in a secluded area. "Where's the crystal?" My eyes curved in a smile. "You didn't really think I was going to give you the crystal, did you, Zoe? Are you blinded by that wolf? I know he has psychic abilities, but he's still a wolf." "Not at all," I said lightly, smiling. The next second, my hand pierced through his chest, grabbing his still beating heart. "Dead men tell no tales. The base doesn't allow private fights," he said intermittently. He dared not move rashly. "What private fight?" "Captain David encountered a high-level zombie and sacrificed himself after being defeated. You put yourself in danger." "How foolish." Hearing this, my fingers tightened. He looked into my eyes, his pupils beginning to dilate. I stared at my blood-soaked palms. The body lying at my feet belonged to the person I had loved for 7 years. Is this what it feels like to have supernatural powers? No wonder, when I returned to the apartment, the young wolf was boredly reading a comic book. I straightened his head. "Do you not like it here?" The young wolf nodded. "Ever since he arrived, I rarely saw him happy." "Then let's leave. Just the two of us." His eyes lit up. He nuzzled up to me, licking my neck in a bid to please. It was inevitable that the secret of the young wolf being a mutant animal would come out, if someone were to capture him for experiments or other purposes. Moreover, I heard that the leader of the northern base was a researcher specialized in studying such cases. The young wolf could handle zombies, but not the cunning humans. The young wolf and I secretly left the base. We both possess sufficient strength to survive in this post-apocalyptic world, along with a warehouse full of food. At night, restless hands wrapped around my waist. The young wolf whined, "It hurts, Zoe," in my drowsy state. I wondered why his mating season was so long, but after all, being a wolf had its strengths. Epilogue. Years later, the northern base was still bustling, and the surrounding cities began to recover year by year. With the base gates now open, there were many small stalls at the gate, some even selling fresh vegetables. A striking couple drew most people's attention. The man was tall, with a fierce look, but he protectively clung to the fair and beautiful woman beside him. Zoe picked up a woolen hat from a stall, and the man obediently bowed his head, letting her fiddle with his hair. They had lived a secluded life, stopping wherever they found beautiful places, but the young wolf was becoming more demanding over time, insisting on kisses as rewards for any task. Zoe kissed the man in front of her. She hadn't expected to see Scarlet again. Scarlet had opened her own weapons shop at the northern base. They stood at a distance, yet neither spoke. They were the last blood-related relatives in this world, but were like strangers to each other. Zoe didn't really hold any resentment towards her. It wasn't like Scarlet had wronged her in the past. She had simply ignored Zoe, disregarded her pain, disregarded that her suffering was because of her, and ignored her cries for help, even letting these things happen. But it was not her responsibility or duty. However, it was impossible for Zoe to be completely untroubled. The best relationship they could have was to act as if they did not know each other. Zoe had once envied her sister, seeing her as a feminist hero, and had followed in her footsteps, but in every aspect, whether in appearance, personality, or otherwise, they were like a natural contrast. Scarlet's aura almost made Zoe feel like dust. Scarlet was healthy, Zoe was frail. Scarlet was smart, Zoe was not. One was radiant, the other pure. Scarlet always effortlessly topped the class, always the pride in their parents' eyes. So, Zoe was always obedient, and could only be obedient, while Scarlet was always rebellious. Even in this post-apocalyptic world, it remained the same. One awakened with supernatural powers, the other still weak. Some of Scarlet's actions were not wrong. The more she rebelled and argued with their parents, the more their parents doted on Zoe, so her dislike was not without reason. In Zoe's eyes, she deliberately played the obedient and docile part to contrast her own rebellious nature. Zoe picked up a sharp dagger, after paying for the crystal. She was ready to leave. It was only as she was about to step out that she heard the woman's faint voice. "I never had a relationship with David. I admit I was somewhat fond of him, but it was only because he was strong. Later, when he left you to save me, it wasn't really about liking me more, but because my powers and his were most effective together. I just hated you, but I never truly wished you dead. I'm very sorry about everything that happened back then. But you accepted that David left me behind, didn't you?" I laughed. "You didn't end up with David, probably because you found him terrifying, especially considering he could so easily discard our 7-year relationship." Scarlet fell silent. Indeed, she had wanted to survive back then, and she was telling the truth. She never wanted her annoying younger sister to die. Outside, a man in black carrying a backpack stuffed with various items saw Zoe leaving and took the things from her hands. "Let's go." Being abandoned back then, she thought her world had collapsed, but later, she realized it was the beginning of a brighter path. Diary of the Wolf King. A group of stinky, annoying humans arrived, along with a delicious-smelling female. "This human female smells so good. I want to gobble her up. The little female is too skinny, barely enough for 2 bites. Maybe I should fatten her up first." The little female kissed me. "I know. This is the human way of courting. Does she like me?" "The little female is small and looks so cute when she cries, but I wonder when she'll get fat enough for me to eat in one bite. Caught 2 plump little rabbits and a chicken today. The little female will surely love these." "She's gone. I'm angry. I want to drag her back and eat her so she can't run away." She cried, her eyes red. She said sorry. "What does that mean?" "She seems sick, not eating. Whatever she eats, she throws up, losing any little weight she gained." Suddenly, I'm a bit scared. What should I do if a human gets sick? I let her go. Maybe she can find other humans to cure her. I'd be sadder if she died than if I ate her. Really unhappy, truly very unhappy. She invited me to leave together. Happy, happy, happy. The little female smells so good. Need to fatten her up. The fatter, the more delicious. Why does the little female keep kissing me? Does she really want to mate with me? Oh well, alright then. Lately, my body feels strange. Always wanting to hold and kiss the little female, wanting her eyes red from crying, but she doesn't like that. It's okay, she doesn't know when she's asleep and I secretly hold her. This base is full of stinky humans. I don't like them, but the little female likes it here. I haven't seen her this happy in a long time. The little female doesn't want to sleep with me anymore. Unhappy, unhappy, unhappy. There are so many people at the base, the little female talks and smiles at others every day. Unhappy, does the little female not like me because I'm a wolf? I heard that stinky man say, the little female almost married herself once. Marriage is the ceremony before officially being together, right? If only I were a human like her, then we could get married. So angry, want to tear that human male apart, but he said Zoe would be angry. Forget it, I'll tear him apart secretly later. Kind of hate this base. If only the whole world were just me and the little female, really want to eat her. Starting with her mouth, Zoe recently complained that I smell bad, won't let me kiss her. How can I be that stinky? Ancestors said, once humans get what they want, they don't cherish it. It's true. Heartless Zoe, heartless Zoe, heartless Zoe. Zoe recently doesn't need me to carry her, so she's exercising her body. Just wait, she'll give in after a few minutes. I want to marry Zoe.